everything over yet.
Okay. All right. I'd like to call to order the regular school committee meeting of Wednesday, November 16th, 2016. Could I get a roll call, please?
Present Barbara Stephan.
Present Katie Dugan.
Present Gina Stino.
Present Ellen Mar.
Present Amanda Zani.
Okay. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next on the agenda is the invitation to speak, and there's no one in the audience, so I guess no one will be speaking.
You're off the song again.
Right. And
If you don't mind, John's going to text me updates.
Okay. All right.
Only if you're sharing them.
Do we have the warrant?
Yes.
It's not in front of me. There's a blue folder in front of you.
Yes, it is. We had a late meeting here.
Thank you. Okay.
Got it, Grant?
So I did come in and review the warrant, and could I have a motion to approve warrant 17-09S? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
I can't.
Warrant,
Do I have a second?
17, second.
All in favor, roll call, please.
Aye, Barbara Stephan.
I Katie Dugan.
Aye, Gina Stino.
I abstain, Ellen Mar.
I Amanda Zani.
Excuse me.
And I do want to acknowledge that I have some information from John about warrants, so I will review that. I just got it yesterday, I believe, so I'll review that, and we may have a further discussion about that shortly. Okay?
About this warrant?
No, about warrants in general.
Procedures.
Just procedures.
Oh, okay.
The procedures have changed a little bit.
At the state level or?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
Okay. All right, so next, we're gonna, if I can request that we put middle high school news on for, do we wanna move,
I'd like to
Essie's?
move Cassandra O'Brien to try it, because she needs to get home.
okay.
No,
No,
we
Jane's not
wouldn't.
here. She did send
Jane is
something
not.
which I couldn't open because I don't have my Google Docs set up yet. Yeah. So, take it away.
Sounds good.
Hi, thanks for inviting me. My name is Cassandra O'Brien, and I've been asked to come tonight to share some of the things that I've been doing in my role as the instructional technology specialist, helping teachers and students with technology at grades K to 5. I transitioned into this role as a specialist as part of the technology initiative and helping with the iPads K1 and 2 and the Chromebooks K1, 2, and 3, and the Chromebooks in grades 4 and 5. And prior to that, I was the computer lab teacher at Deer Hill for about 12 years. I counted earlier.
Wow.
Seems like a long time. So in this role, I've been sort of the liaison between the teachers, students, and BART to ensure the teachers and students have what they need to effectively utilize the technology for instruction and student learning. I've been working with BART and Kyle with the Google Admin Console, which is where the users, Google account users, and the Chromebooks are managed. And I've also been working with them on the mobile device management system, which is AirWatch, and that's how we're managing the iPads K to 3, and we're pushing out apps and the like. And so some of the classroom things that I've been doing, teachers will email me or sign me out on my calendar to come help with Google tools or help with iPads. Sometimes I meet them at common planning times to talk to them to do, fit in a little PD wherever we can, that kind of thing. I've also worked with building a foundation for digital citizenship and with the iPad Promise that we started last year, and this year we started with some Chromebook guidelines, ensuring students are prepared with best practices for communicating online and being responsible in their digital environment. I've been working with teachers with the Google Drive and Google Classroom. They've been very excited to get started with that. So before our PD last Tuesday, we were doing that early in the school year already at Deer Hill. and that's been one of the big interests. We've also been, I also am called to help with interactive board, whiteboard issues, or, you know, Epson projector issues, so I'm there in the building to help out when possible. And I can sometimes provide additional information with Bart and Kyle to troubleshoot, things like that. I also been working with the computer lab teachers for the curriculum and instruction for the learning that goes on during their computer lab time. And I have created a section on the SchoolWires webpage, which is why this is up, for access for K-5 teachers. I created it's a sign-in access for them, and there's a faculty resources educational technology section. Sort of new and new for the teachers. I'm not sure how often they've been getting to it, but I kind of just feel like it's a great place to go and post information on all of these topics. I started with just some digital citizenship, common sense media, through Google Chromebook and training, Google Docs, slides, forms. Some of the things I created, some of the things are just videos that I found that I thought they might find helpful. Sometimes we can all find information online, but it's nice to know if there's a go-to resource they know is going to help them. I had some information on iPads here. At Osgood, we're now using Mimeo with the Epson projectors, so I wanted to create some resources for teachers there, but we'll be getting into that more this year. That sort of came about last spring. And then I've started a series called Watch This We Can Do. It's sort of an email that I send out with some things that I thought could be helpful to all the K-5 teachers, specifically that age group. And I've collected the information from what's going on in the classrooms, not just sort of what's going on in a classroom 3 states away, but what are they doing right here? There's not a lot of time for cross-collaborating between grades. So I started off with a simple one at the beginning of the year. It was a great tip that a teacher at Osgood's using for knowing where to plug in the cords for their projectors. So you might think that's not really a big one, but it actually was super helpful. Then I shared some ways that they could communicate with parents. So a teacher at Osgood has already been using this tool called Blooms for a number of years, so I shared it with some of the other teachers. And then my son's teacher, I kind of cheated on this one. My son's teacher uses Class Dojo. I just wanted to give another option of communicating. And then I did with Google this year, this was a great one, helping teachers create custom search engines for their students instead of just doing a search in Google. You can collectively bring sites together to one place, so they're still typing in key search words, but it only goes to the websites that you've approved. So that's kind of a nice tool for our age groups here. And then the last one was using Google Sheets for helping with student placement and communicating for grades on that.
I have
and
this,
I'm
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that the teachers have been very excited, and so as we go through this new device management system and the Google admin console and the Chromebooks, if there's learning along the way, so if they come up with something they need, I try to help communicate that with Bart and try to solve it as soon as we can.
So just a quick question. I know at Osgood last year, maybe it was the year before, there was a CEF grant that Karen McDavitt and Jen McPhillips did those 7 tech morning workshops. Have you been able to incorporate, because they created a whole website that embedded that training. Has that been kind of captured now on the district website?
Well, it's right here. It's
awesome.
the
That's
Technology Rocks. Their whole, I put this here and
great.
as an extended, and because I'm creating one web page where both teachers at both schools can go to, that's why I have the Return to Osgood. They click on the educational technology and it bounces them here.
It
So
bounces them there.
I'm not updating 2 separate web pages at the same time.
Blooms was a workshop beyond the grant that Osgood has a later start, so it's easier to do for them. They did do Blooms as a workshop for those who came, and then having it on the website means that Dear Health now benefits as well. I do have to say that Cassie's been very modest, because we've been talking for about 3 years about she was underutilized in the classroom, and that we wanted to align the curriculum for both schools. So by putting ESPs in the classroom and having her guide them, they win, we win, and she aligns the curriculum. She was also instrumental in helping me find an assessment for grade. We give it 3, 4, 5.
Just, fifth grade.
Fifth grade.
Learning.com.
Learning.com, so it assesses the competency that children have before they come into the middle school on digital device use, so digital literacy. So I just can't give enough accolades, and she's been incredibly valuable and has worked very diligently with Joanne McDonald and Sue. So they've developed a great role and a great system of working.
That's when she was a great mentor.
Well, she had a great student too, so it was wonderful. So
When teachers sign you out, do they sign you out to co-teach sometimes? Or?
Sometimes, yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Or I'll just, this year in particular, with the Chromebooks, I would go in and introduce the Chromebooks and talk about the Google Drive and sort of lead the students through the steps, and they're just sort of off and running.
Yeah.
I had to stop her from doing all the work she was doing with Barton on
Yeah.
because she cataloged all of the apps
Yeah.
for the iPads, categorized, so she gets the
Excited to
crown.
get that going.
She's great.
Yeah.
She's
No,
been waiting a long time, obviously.
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Great.
Thanks
you for having me.
taking time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so on to the regular agenda,
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Cassie.
Thanks, Cassie.
With the monthly update by John Tuffy. And before we go any further, we've had some commentary from members of the home audience that they're having difficulty hearing us at our meetings. So apparently there is more equipment in the ceiling now. Dawn is working with the students to try and turn things up a little bit. So hopefully it will work better. But we just need to be cognizant that people are actually watching us at home, which is good.
It's great.
It is good. So, okay, I'm sorry.
Not a problem. And in fact, Don was here last week making some adjustments to
Uh-huh.
the things in the ceiling to hopefully soften that background noise.
Good.
A couple of things to talk about. We've got the summary report, and the report has a little more detail. At this point in time, there's nothing dramatically different between this year and last year. Yes, there are some differences. For instance, we have not spent as much from circuit breaker this year as we did last year. It's no particular reason, it's just the way it's worked. We've worked to take money out of the appropriated budget. There are some, if you looked at the detail, there are some items that we have some deficits in accounts. At this point in time, nothing is major, but it certainly shows that in some cases, we probably should have budgeted slightly differently. We have a case where all the money for psychological testing is as opposed to the product that tests themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have to go back in and split that money. It's both the same purpose, but one is a category for materials, the other is a category for services. That's the bulk of what we're dealing with at this point in time.
Questions? For John? No? Oh, sorry.
Just one quick question. The flip in other, I assume that's the phone system.
Correct.
If the encumbrance is now flipped
Actually,
off.
the encumbrance was relieved, the purchase
Yeah.
order was liquidated and moved over to the town side.
Okay.
Good point. It was $106,000.
Yep.
That made this look very different because that was not budgeted. The advisory committee has agreed to fund that through their fund and hopes to be reimbursed at the town meeting. But it is, in fact, that bill has now been paid.
Okay. PO liquidated, so it got paid by the town.
Got paid by the town.
And taken off
We
the books.
liquidated the purchase order, the town picked up the purchase order and paid it.
Okay.
And that phone system is mostly us, although the backbone to the servers, the shelf equipment, is going to service the entire town once it's up and running.
Okay. Great. That was my big question.
Any other questions about any of the items in the report? No, it's pretty straightforward.
If you look at the revolving funds and grants, just a couple of comments. As you may be aware, we have collected all of our transportation funds. There's nothing outstanding, so that's
Great.
forward. Kindergarten, for the first half, we're down to just a handful, and I mean a handful of people that haven't paid in full, and some of them are on payment plans.
Okay.
We will be reminding them in a quick few weeks that the second payment is due, very beginning of January.
January.
So we will be doing that. When you look at the grants, a couple of people have noticed that the receipts are at a different level than last year, and that is really about timing for the most part. It is partially timing, and it's also partially the states worked harder to manage their money better. So now when you get a grant, you get the very first payment, which is 1/10 of the grant amount. And then after that, you have to file for the money, and you're only allowed to file for your projected expenses for the month.
Really? You have to file for it every month?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, except for the very small ones, like the $2,000 grant, so
Uh-huh.
we'll send you a check for it all at once.
Is that because of it, not this year, but in other years, the specter of 9C cuts, that
No.
they couldn't met it out?
No, actually, it goes back to an audit the federal government did, I'm gonna say 3 or 4 years ago,
Okay.
where the state was criticized for being overly generous in their cash flow, for giving the money out too quickly. So in an effort to better manage money, they've gone to this method.
Maybe the feeling was that if they front-loaded all of those grants, people might not spend it appropriately. Who knows?
Don't know.
Just didn't have the cash because they were collecting whatever it is.
You know, and actually it's very different than it was a few years ago. I mean, I'm gonna say 3 years ago, the state went from distributing your Chapter 78 quarterly to doing monthly. So, states become more cognizant of cash flow and better managing their cash.
I have a very funny comment. I wonder how many people they've had to add to their rolls to watch this. Because before, it was one person doing the
Yeah.
disbursements. Now, they have to have multiple people watching, I would think. It's more complex this way.
Maybe they're saving the
It's,
money to pay
it's,
for it.
it's
though.
actually, I have to say, it's pretty automated and works pretty well.
Yeah.
It really does. And of course, I say they send us a check, they never send us a check, they send us an electronic payment.
Right.
And so, for instance, in one of the grants, on November 7th, we got a $20,000 payment for expected expenses in the coming year. So it's coming in regularly.
Mhm.
At this point in time, there shouldn't be any concerns about they're slowing down payment because of cash flow problems.
Good. Okay.
So I had just noted that, the total revolving balances and special accounts is pretty much on par with last year. I'll call out to John earlier this week on the use of facilities, because that's up over last year, and he indicated that the, high school gym floor will be done out of that fund, and that there were some other smaller projects coming out of that fund.
There are a number of items that traditionally have been paid for out of that fund. For instance, Deer Hill the floor has already been refinished
Mhm.
and paid for out of that fund. This next Tuesday and Wednesday, they'll do the high school gym.
And athletics is higher than last year, but I think it has to do with the cycle of uniform replacements. I think he had fall uniforms last year, and he has some winter uniforms on the schedule this year. That's why there's a differential.
But you're right, Ellen, the balance is like $1,000 difference from
yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
When you look at the spend rates, they're not markedly different. I mean, there are some adjustments to be made, but they're not markedly different than what they were last year.
Yeah, pretty much on the money.
Pretty
last
much
year.
on the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a pattern to what we do. And just turning to the transportation report, a couple of things. Overall, things are fine, but we did have a bus that required some expensive repairs. It was out of service for a while. In fact, I think the last time we met, there was some table talk about the bus having been stranded by the side of the road. Yes, it was that bus. It turned out to be pretty serious. It had to be towed up to the company we leased them from. We expect it to be a warranty claim. They processed it as if it was a warranty claim. We got the bus back and it's back in service.
Good.
There was no lasting damage. So we're off and running and in pretty good shape. almost hate to say that out loud.
Yeah,
Yeah, I really do. I hate to say it out loud, but we're way ahead on maintenance.
Well, that's
It's
good.
so far been a good year. You know, there's a lot of year left to go, but it's been a good year.
Well, just like when you purchase a new vehicle for your home, the first year, sometimes the first two, most everything's covered by warranty, but that's when all the little glitches have to be ironed out, so maybe that's what the first year of the buses was.
And the kind of problems, looking back at the records, the kind of problems we dealt with early on were sort of that run-in stuff that happened, switches that didn't work as well as we'd like, doors that weren't as aligned as they could have been, and that caused some warning lights to go off, things like that. This, near as I can tell, this repair that we had, and it was an engine repair, was the first major sort of repair that we've had on that fleet of 7 buses that we leased.
Okay.
And it's good to see that the mileage from last month is more evenly distributed across the buses. Before we would see one bus with 300 miles, one bus with 2,000 miles, and I don't know if your third revision on bus routes is
Well, I think
contributing, but
the revision on bus routes will have made a big difference.
Yeah.
The bus routes that we had last year were very different in terms of miles that people drove in
Yeah.
time.
Interesting.
The change this year evens them out. They're all pretty much the same distance. There's some differences in loads and distances in time, but they're a lot closer to being uniform than they were last year. The other thing that has happened, just as an aside, is that all 3 runs are the same. So bus 2 runs the same route for Deer Hill, Osgood, and high school, whereas last year those routes could be very different. It made it difficult when we had a substitute driver because they had to learn 3 routes in the same day as opposed to learning 1. So it's a lot easier to move people from bus to bus when we have to.
Is that a pretty standard concept in other districts?
Yes.
Having-
That is a pretty standard concept.
Sorry.
So there's some things that are pretty standard in buses, period, and that is if on the way in you're the first one that's picked off, on the way back you're the last one that's dropped off.
Right,
It's
right.
kind of the way it goes.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No, I was just gonna ask, any issues this fall with the after-school athletic trips? I'm not aware that Ron's had to contract out bus services for anything.
We have had to contract out to have some runs done by another provider, just because we ran out of buses and ran out of time. And where some of especially the tournament play and the late afternoon play in the fall, it interferes with our afternoon runs.
Yeah.
And so while we do have 2 spares, we have been very busy. I mean, the good news is we've been very busy. We've been successful. A lot of kids are getting to play a lot further into the season than maybe in some other years.
Including right as we sit here.
As we sit
Soccer,
here,
no text.
Boys soccer,
No
no
update,
text.
no
No text,
update
no
on John
update.
Martin, he's slacking.
although there's no question.
They only started at 7:15, so let's just,
Although there's no question, when we had one of the newer lease buses out of service for something over a week, that made it more likely we were gonna have to hire
Right,
somebody
right.
to drive buses.
right.
Ron has always done an amazing job of managing that percent of athletic routes that we've had to rent or an external service to provide. It's, for the complexity of it, it's amazing that he manages it.
Ron and the bus coordinator do a good job of working together, and frankly, Ron is tremendous at giving us advance notice, at letting the bus coordinator know that he's either gonna need a bus next week, or he may need a bus next week, depending on what happens, so that some plans can be made. Not a lot of last minute demands from Ron, which makes all the difference in the world.
Well, the regular season is pretty much set, you know, the game schedule for all the sports at the beginning of the season, and then only if there's a makeup because of a weather issue or something like that. And then the tournament, the MIAA dictates tournament days, times, and locations, so if you're in the tournament, you're at their
Yeah, and football,
wanna see.
football in the last few years has been very different when they went to the playoff system.
Right.
So you start the year not knowing who you're gonna be playing for those last 4 games before Thanksgiving.
Right.
They may be home, they may be away. In fact, you may have a game that's non-league and quite a distance away.
Okay.
And going to Nantucket is apparently not the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah,
No, with a school bus, of all things.
Doesn't look very well.
You got the kids with their hands out the windows.
Oh, I wonder how much an amphibious school bus would cost.
I don't even wanna know.
No. Any other questions on this?
No.
No, okay.
So you're next on the fee schedule?
Fee review, and there was a subcommittee meeting, and perhaps, Ellen might wanna talk about that.
Oh, Ellen hasn't done any work on that yet.
We're looking
I saw it on the
at,
agenda and I said, maybe John's done it.
well, we don't have anything for you to vote on. But just to let you know that the subcommittee has started to look at fees, and from 2 perspectives. One is the kindergarten and the preschool fees, should they be adjusted? Katie has volunteered to do some benchmarking to see where do we stand compared to other districts, and also looking at our costs. And then the more simple, straightforward part of what's going on is we're looking at the facility use fees that we have, and even though they were passed just last year, some of the fees that are in there that deal with the cost of custodial help, cafeteria help, are set in stone, and in fact, we have some labor contracts that have changed. So we need to make, I'm not anticipating major adjustments, some minor adjustments, so we keep pace with really what our labor costs are.
Well, technically, the labor costs should adjust every year. We should look at these fees every year, because with the contractual obligations,
Yeah,
the price does go up every year.
yeah.
I was just gonna suggest that on the facilities form with the 4 quadrants where it does detail that out, that instead of revising that every year, unless we're doing a full facilities fee review, is just put per current contract and have an addendum that anyone who comes in can get the current rate, and just have a rate sheet so that the form itself and the structure itself doesn't change until we decide to make changes. But that's just a suggestion.
Yeah.
Because I think there's 2 pieces to this. There's the kind of annual updates, which I think Ellen's suggestion really addresses, and the bigger conversation in terms of like, are there structural changes? And we did that exercise as it relates to our usage fees last year in looking at how the turf fields were being utilized and charged. And so we did kind of a deeper dive structurally. And so, there's a piece of it that's just making sure that our fees reflect the current labor rates, and there's another conversation around, do they structurally make sense? And when we had done our school committee goals for this year, we had specifically called out that it was time to look at kindergarten and pre-K and transportation, just again, keeping us on a cycle of looking at them from a structural perspective.
And like charges.
Yeah, exactly. So those were the 3 that we had called out specifically, and we'll do a quick tune-up to the facility use one, just because it needs to happen for labor purposes, labor rate purposes.
Right. I think that's a great idea, Ellen, because if we attach it right up front, so that everybody understands the expectations for fiscal year 16, fiscal year 17, fiscal year 18, we don't have to keep revisiting. It's
Until
right
it's
there
time
in
to
black.
revisit the whole
And
thing.
yeah, 3 years down the road,
Yeah.
when the new contract is settled, then we do have to adjust.
Yeah.
So in theory, if we do it that way, we only have to do that every 3 years.
And I don't know when the kindergarten or pre-K was last looked at kind of structurally, but it certainly wasn't in the last 2 years. So I think it's definitely time.
Yeah, we keep bringing it up, but we haven't changed it in a while.
Yeah.
So it may be time to adjust, because we do know
Kindergarten-
that,
Kindergarten registration is gonna start sooner than we expect, so
Right.
it's- I'm struggling with the idea that Thanksgiving is next week, I don't know.
I've been thinking all along that it's 2 or 3 weeks out, and then all of a sudden I thought, it's next week. So the good news is we have an extra week between Thanksgiving and Christmas, because it seems to be a little bit earlier this year, so.
So that's the report on fees. In terms of budget, well, a couple of things. We're trying to fill in some blanks, if you will, in the budget going forward. And one of the things that had come up had to do with the bus lease. Bus lease actually was due partway through the year. I've been in contact with New England Transit. They were kind of surprised that it ended at the end of December as well, December 2017. And so we have agreed that what makes the most sense is to just extend that lease for 6 months to coincide with the fiscal year. So we'll come back to a future meeting and ask you to vote on. Did you vote on the last lease?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would have thought so. So we'll come back to a future meeting and ask you to vote to extend it for 6 months, and with no change in terms or conditions, but just an addendum to the existing lease. If that.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay.
That's awesome.
That's great.
All right.
I had shared, Amanda and I had shared with John and Louise from Capital Budget that did come up. Brian Host was quite concerned about the status of the lease and had any work been started yet for whatever the next go-round is gonna be. And so they said that we would contact John and Louise and ask for the conversation about extending it for 6 months, and then we do need to start. He wants us to start thinking about, Brian Host does, about what the next 3-year bus transportation scenario is.
You know, I think I'm glad that Capital is thinking ahead, but on the other hand, from a timing perspective, I wanna settle some of the contractual issues before we take that next conversation.
Yes. Yep.
And I'm not sure
Yep.
that is Capital aware of?
Yes.
Okay, so they're aware that we've
Yes.
got 2 conversations going on right
Yes.
now, but at least having the bus lease as a fixed item for FY18, and then for FY19, we'll need to rethink the bigger strategic question.
And I think that as we get into next year, there are a couple of things that will go with whatever that decision is. For instance, we will have 7 buses that presumably are well-maintained, unless something happens. They've been well-maintained, they'll be relatively low mileage. Do we look to try to extend the lease on those, or do we look to replace part of the fleet? So a couple of, and those decisions affect cost.
Right.
So.
And I think one of the conversations for FY19 will certainly be around the 2 owned ones, because when we originally entered into the lease, we kept the lower mileage, the 35,000 mile one, because it was basically brand new at the time, and there was no point in getting rid of it, and we knew we needed that extra bus. What I don't think we appreciated operationally was that we needed that second spare, and as a result, we kept that second spare, the one with the 60,000 mileage, as kind of
It's more like 70.
Yeah, 70, sorry. I'm rounding down. That one was kept as a safety belt, but as what we found out was that it's not a safety belt, it's actually necessary for the working order. So when we have those FY19 conversations, one of the conversations is that we're actually a nine bus fleet. You know,
Right.
when we originally started these conversations with Capital, we knew we needed to replace 7 because they were rusting. But I think the next conversation is not only do you outsource completely, but recognition that we're a 9 bus fleet, not a 7 bus fleet, and whatever solution we have has to encompass that.
Well, it certainly seems unlikely that we're going to see such a jump in enrollment that we would need to add another bus route.
Right.
Yep.
Having said that, we have had a couple of instances, and we talked about a repair here not too long ago, where we were using that spare bus in everyday transportation. And then finally, the bus that is pushing 70,000 miles is certainly safe. I mean, we're not concerned about it, but it's probably not the bus that we'd want to send on a long field trip.
And we spent $15,000 in maintenance last year on that bus, which was part of the argument with Capital around why you didn't want a bus that was longer in the tooth in your fleet. It was cheaper to pay a lease than to spend $15,000 in maintenance bills. Though this year it's been much more kind to us.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I do not have any more questions.
Thank you.
Anyone?
We have a couple of slides colleagues from Camp Wing, and as you know, Carolyn needed to be on the field for the tournament, but she hasn't texted yet, so she's in the doghouse. We didn't want to delay it much. It was very successful. I don't think there's much to say. We didn't hear any complaints. We had the usual handful of children who needed to go home, because it's difficult for young children who've never been away before, going into the woods and all of that. I guess the activities were wonderful. It's been a wonderful choice. The meals were great. There was no complaining. I didn't hear anything at all. She said that she found some great bonding with children and adults, which is what we wanted, some good mentoring. Children with children whom they not normally would associate with did. I know that Carrie's comment was, this is one of the nicest sixth grade class that she thought they were delightful. And that was the day she came back, so she really was impressed. So this is what she came. There was 99% participation rate of those who went. It's a faculty team and members, and they thought that everyone was wonderful. It was a solid programming. They're still very pleased with the way that Camp Wing is keeping them busy and pacing and supervising and grouping. They found that the counselors were very resourceful. They really attended to the needs of the children and their interests and their questions and where they were, what they were doing, how they were reacting. And she found that it was the best opportunity for staff to connect with the children. And what it looks like in action, they were watching students teach one another, which is certainly one of the skills that we want to promote. By showing someone how to bait a hook was one example. She said, seeing our students emerge as leaders, they really took the leadership role in teaching others, but also in grouping them, bringing them together, helping them perform for their cabin in Dutch option, and I'm not sure what that is. I think it's sort of, you do this and I'll do that kind of thing. Pick up your own stuff, make your own bed. That's what I assume. Observations of amazing energy in the group as they partook in lunch and dinner, dances with counselors. She felt that they were all very invested and very active in their own roles, and no one seemed to be standing in the corner and all of that kind of thing. She felt that 99%, all of them, actually 100% who were there were actually invested in what they were doing. She found that teachers and counselors both were listening as students look out for one another, and a teacher being told a friend was feeling sick, so there was that confidence. Like they're confident enough to go to an adult and say, my friend needs you, and there was that kind of empathy, which so early in the year is so beneficial. And definitely positive energy, and students reflected on the days, and their counselors and teachers and their journals were very positive, and not heard any negative, so it's been a good year. Katie?
Just, we originally started this Camp Wing review last year because it was a pilot,
Right.
and we were transitioning from Borndale. This is year 2, and it sounds just as successful.
Correct.
So I guess I'm posing the question to the committee as to whether we need to continue to get Camp Wing updates. We don't really get updates in this manner on other programs or trips that are being run. We approve the trip and then it moves on. So from my perspective, if it's going to be the same news year in, year out, and it's a program that the middle school team is happy with.
We always got Quentin Camp Borndale
We've always
updates.
had a review of how
Okay.
because it's an entire grade 6 initiation of sorts. From the time that I've been here, we've always had a report out
Right.
on Borndale or wherever the grade 6 has gone, because it's the beginning of their middle school. It's early in the year, and it takes away from school days, so, or the organized school days. So
Right.
we've always assessed where they fit as far as learning is concerned, and what the intent was, and that was team building, advisory kind of leadership and student collaboration. So those are the three huge elements we usually report.
And I guess my observation is that we've been looking for areas, and I feel badly that Carolyn's been asked to come 2 times in a row. Is this an example of something that we can just get in an update from the leadership team? I don't know. My view is that if it's positive news and it's the same as last year, that maybe it's a quick, I don't know.
I think we need to review it annually. I mean, I don't.
Maybe what we could do is speak to Carolyn and see how she feels about coming and presenting the update versus having the superintendent present the update.
It's judicious
I think
sometimes to use
that's
that.
what you're saying, right?
That's what I'm part of it saying that, you know, for Carolyn to come out and give us what is a great positive report, but a 5-minute report for her to stay late, it feels, if she wants to come, that's great, but we've been trying to be conscious of not having.
We usually couple with something else.
Okay.
And tonight would have been more of the AP questions or SAT, any kind of thing. Or MCAS originally. We usually don't just ask her to come for that alone.
Right.
So I take your point, and I think that's considerate.
I have 2 thoughts, and maybe the first one kind of addresses what Katie was talking about. I think this is great information. I think it would be really fun, if it would be appropriate, to have the kids put together a presentation and come in, if it wouldn't be too intimidating, so that we could, you know, they're all tech savvy, they could do, you know, their own PowerPoint, take with their pictures or whatever. Because it's fun to hear it from their perspective.
I agree.
So that was just one thought, and then Katie, maybe that just gives it a little bit different spin.
Different flavor.
Yeah.
And then my second thought was, and I'm gonna go back, sorry folks, but I'm gonna go back, when we went to Camp Wing, we had high school kids, freshmen and sophomores, who were the counselors from the school. And it was a very, and I'll tell you, Laura Giuliana was my cabin counselor, but,
The fact that you
Sorry,
remember
Laura.
says something.
The flow, the teacher,
the
the
teachers,
freshmen.
yeah, I'm a
Tales.
cornucopia of
Such a
Cohasset.
such a townie.
Such a town, no, not really.
I know.
Technically, I'm not. No, but it was kind of, you talk about the peer leader and developing leadership skills and kids learning to advocate or look out for each other, and I think that and I don't know with the academic requirements of today's high school students if they could go for the whole time, but we do have a peer leader program, and we do have kids that could outreach to these kids at Camp Wing for a day, for a half day or something, and have a connection. I don't know. I thought it was kind of cool, and then I went as a freshman and a sophomore to be a counselor, and it was very cool.
I think the difficulty would be academically.
Yeah.
Because they would be missing block schedules, which is quite a bit of the day, that their peers are already in a seat. So I think that's a discussion. But
Yeah. Or maybe it's an afternoon into evening.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
It's not a 3-hour drive on a bus, so I kind of view it, you know, for example, the freshman class does the coastal sweep. Okay, this could be tied into curriculum also. There's no reason why it couldn't somehow work with a science component.
I'll relay those ideas.
Just thought.
We've asked Sue to come and give us an update on both AP results. I thought it would be beneficial to do AP results first, so we understand what AP is all about, and then acknowledge those that have exceeded expectations on AP. So, take it away.
Take it away. AP is, here in Cohasset, as I look at the data for this year and past years, is something that I think the Cohasset Public Schools should be very proud of, the offerings that they give to students here in the district and the results that the students show when they take their exams in the spring of every year. It's not what you'd find everywhere. If you look at the program of studies for the high school here, these are the courses that are potentially AP courses, and I would say for the most part, they run every year. With the exception of physics and biology are the two
Physics
that,
and chemistry.
and they flip-flop. So you wouldn't see them necessarily every year. But this is a great opportunity for students to take those advanced placement exams. I think the other thing that Cohasset should be proud of is the fact that you have what I would label as open enrollment on these courses. That is not the practice in many other districts. You may counsel students, if they ask, should I take this or not, and help them through thinking about what courses they might wanna take. But if they wanna take an AP class, they are not having to get a grade in a certain preceding class. They don't have to write an essay to be accepted into it. All practices that I've seen other districts do have. I'd also tell you that the College Board very much believes that you should be doing open enrollment on AP classes. That it really is, if you don't, you're denying students access to the curriculum that they want to be part of. So it was an interesting piece that once along the line, I had someone from the College Board that I had a chance to chat with and relayed that piece to me. So I think that you do it this way is something that you should be very, very pleased with the way that you offer these to the students in the school here. And I think the results that you see from the exams that they take show that they're quite capable of doing these courses. So how did they do this year? For this year in 2016, what you have here is a 5-year look at what has been happening in terms of how many AP students, how many exams, how many students score 3 or better on that exam, and what percentage does that look like over the last 5 years. I think you can see that the number of students who are taking AP classes has been increasing every one of the years over this last 5-year period. The number of exams obviously then is also increasing, as well as the number of students who are scoring at that 3 or better level on the exams that they take. And that they're also maintaining, even though you have more students taking more exams, you're still maintaining a very nice 90.5% of students who are able to do the 3 or better on the scores. And that is even in keeping with the AP exams were changed. 2015 was the first of a new exam that was given, and so even with a change in exam, you're still seeing results that are quite impressive. If you want to look at that in terms of how do you fare in terms of Massachusetts, as well as on the global arena, again, Cohasset is showing a very nice showing, well above the Massachusetts and the global look at AP tests that are given throughout the state and around the world. So AP scores, you heard me say about 3 or better. I think it's always a good idea to know what does that mean. The AP College Board people have said that a score of 3 or higher represents a score point that research says means it's a predictive index of college success and college graduation. And that these findings have been sustained over a number of decades. And in fact, one research that was done by the National Center for Education Accountability said that an AP exam score, and particularly a score of 3 or better, is a very strong indicator or predictor of a student's ability to persist in college and earn a bachelor's degree. So it's not just getting into college and starting the first year or two, but it's actually being able to pursue your field of study through to the attainment of a bachelor's degree. So when you see that in Cohasset you have a large percentage of students who are able to do 3 or better, that's an indicator to those students' families and to the district that these are kiddos who should be able to go on to higher ed and be successful. So if we look at this in a little bit more depth, The scores that students can earn are from a 5, the best score, down to a 1. And again, you're looking at this over a 5-year span of time. And you can see that the thing I was looking at in particular were that if you look at that bottom, the students who score 1, that has been decreasing with the exception of 2013, and that was one that I did say, what happened in 2013? There were certainly fewer students taking exams. You had a couple of exams that everybody got 3 or better on, in particular biology in that year, and in a calculus and US history, which, you know, somewhat changes the dynamic of that particular year. But your number, it's kind of rising up so that your 1s and 2s, those who aren't at the 3 that is that predictor, has been changing. And so I think that's something that is certainly something to be working toward all the time, which means that the courses are being taught that are getting them ready for these exams, and they're ready to take the exam when we get in there. And so if we take and look at it, I've tried to slice this a number of different ways for you, is to look at each of the exams that were given this year, and how many exams were given, which you see there on the right-hand side, but then in those exams, how many were 5s, 4s, 3s, 2s, and 1s. And, you know, as you go down through, you can see that certainly the English are two that we take a lot of students participate in those 2 areas, and are doing very nicely when you look at how many were in that 3 or better. Macroeconomics is off the charts, and it has been for a couple of years. I do think that there's a certain student who likes to get into those kind of subject areas. And of course also, I would say that the teacher of that course does a fantastic job with that course.
If we could loan that person, it would be fabulous, wouldn't it?
It wouldn't. So you can see that, you know, that we have a good, my computer likes to fall asleep once in a while. We have a good number of students who are participating in each of these different, you don't want to see that, in each one of these different areas. Pardon me for a second while I escape.
I want to say that it's very encouraging to see, and for me, the increasing number in 1s and 2s, which for me means that teachers have encouraged and guided those students to take that risk and to feel safe enough to be guided through it. I'm always proud of 1s and 2s because they're indicative of someone who really wants to stretch him or herself.
My computer likes to go to sleep
Oh, there it is.
periodically, and I need a Bart or a Kyle to fix my time in the sleep because I can't get into it myself. Yes, and actually the other piece that I would tell you is that when I was looking at the 1s and 2s, I went back also and looked at their MCAS scores, a historical look at their MCAS scores from 3rd grade on up through. And were there any there that I might have said to them, gee, it might have been a good idea not to take that course? Absolutely not. They really, I think they were perfectly a good place to go. It was a good challenge for them. My experience is that the kids do rise and do well and take advantage of the rigor that is in those courses. So
There's also the day of the test and the question, and I'm not, it just happens.
yeah, absolutely.
There.
I always think that, you know, assessment you have to look at as, I would liken it to a photo album when you're looking at how a student is prepared or how they're performing in a particular area. It isn't just one day, one kind of exam, you know, it's a host of things that you wanna look at, AP, projects that they did, papers they wrote, you know, a day-to-day look at those students, and that really gives you a full rounded picture of any student. This is just the end part of those exams that were given this year. We do every year have some students who we do what we call an independent study. This is usually a computer online course. While we don't actually have a teacher who teaches online courses here, we do have the capacity to have students get into an online course where the teacher is teaching. They're somewhere else. They're somewhere else, and they just go online and take the course.
Is that during the school day, or is that on their own time?
That's during the school day.
It's a little both.
It's a little, yeah. Online online, the interesting thing I think with online courses is they're very rigorous courses, having taken one and taught one. So it's, but yeah, it's a little bit of both.
No, just because the success is there, and it would be an interesting to see if more kids, seeing that their peers were successful, would gravitate towards more of these that we don't offer.
Yeah. It's, when I've looked into online courses in the past, often it is districts that really get heavily into it. It tends to be that don't offer the AP suite that you do.
Okay.
But it is also, then another caveat is that one thing in the technology plan is to, by the 2021, the end of that plan, to have all students at the high school having experienced an online course. So that is something we want to move toward.
Yeah. We have 20 seats on virtual high school, and they are filled. So we have 20 students filling one semester and 20 filling the other. So there are a variety of courses. The AP courses are an added fee that the students must absorb, and there are some who do take.
So are the AP part of the 20 seats?
Yes.
Okay.
But we don't track their scores, their results, the independent
The others?
studies
We do have a track. We
for
do have-
AP.
Yeah, we do have, we have that they scored 4s, as you can see here. Is that, Jean, I may be missing. But the other piece that you.
Okay, I see it.
Okay. The other piece you'd find is if you look at the state, like the district profile, they are not there because they don't record anything under 10. You have to have a cohort of 10 students take the course for the
okay.
state reporting pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So I just wanna, on the Spanish and French, is this the first time in a while that we've had AP exams in AP Spanish and AP French?
They are always offered. We didn't have the enrollment in the last 2 years.
But, so this is big news for us, that we actually have
Yes.
14 test takers. I mean, for me, I was like, hallelujah,
Yes.
that we actually, because we had
You had 2 years of total emptiness there,
Right.
right?
Right.
Right.
And we do have students who take foreign language APs, but they opt not to test.
I didn't think it was an option.
It's not an option.
It isn't?
No.
I thought that you didn't have to take the test.
AP students must take the AP exam.
Oh, but that's different from.
I think it
Certain
may have
districts
changed. I
don't.
think you're right, it may have changed, but some schools who seem to score extremely well only allow students who have a B+ or better
Yeah.
to take the AP exam.
Right, okay.
And that may be, there's the selective process.
Okay. Yes.
We have everyone
Everybody
to take
takes.
it, right?
Everybody
Is
takes.
there anything that's changed to allow this positive outcome? Because I view the fact that we're back in the business of AP French and AP Spanish as amazing news, but is there anything that we can learn from why that cohort of students actually?
Where is do we have Spanish?
Yeah, it's on this page.
Yeah.
Spanish language and culture, they're actually, I don't know what that is, I really don't, where that change is, it's just the year, it just happens to be the year. It could be the year that there's a science that students are not particularly attuned to and can fit Spanish in.
To me,
Something
it-
to take a look at.
It is, because we had a drought for so long.
It's
and
2 years.
Well,
But no, we haven't seen results since,
a long time.
a long time, since 2011. Yeah. You go back for DESI.
And it may be just that the DESI doesn't report the numbers, Ellen, cause I didn't appreciate that they only report cohorts
Of 10,
of
right,
10,
right.
so
Right,
maybe there is
right.
data, but from where we were looking, this drought had been like 5 years. So
It isn't.
Okay.
I think last year and the year before, we did not have a cohort in French, but we did the year before.
Right.
Okay,
We
so,
did.
I believe if you go back to 2014.
Yes.
so maybe it's just the DESI data that's
Correct.
misled us, but I think if there is a way to, for me,
Tease out what's
it was big, great news that we're no longer in drought on that one.
Usually when students end up taking the AP in Spanish or French, it's that they've stayed with a language for longer so that they are ready to take that. So it'd be interesting to see how if students, continued with a language for a longer period of time so they're prepared really to take AP in a particular area.
And at one point, we had added staffing and changed the block scheduling so that there were more opportunities for students to get to the AP track. I remember a conversation from 18 months ago when we did the block study report, that one of the reasons that we weren't getting students to AP was because of the block schedule and the amount,
Continuity.
and the staffing levels. So that's just me remembering back to that block study report.
So AP French and Spanish are both full year courses like all the other APs, right? And then I can't remember, so lower levels languages, did they get switched to full years or are they still broken
No.
up? They're still broken up.
Yes.
I mean, I still think that's a big deterrent to continuing with the language, so I mean, while it's nice that we have this, it's clearly lagging behind everything else. I still think it's a weakness in the schedule, and I just don't think you can study music or language that way, but anyway, it's a shame.
No, I've been saying that for years.
Because it's a missed opportunity for, who knows how our Boston Magazine rankings could improve if
Well, the fact that Jessie only reports
Yes.
cohorts of 10 scores, that's actually,
Yeah,
that
that's
actually
us a
hurts,
ton.
that
That's
hurts
odd.
us,
Oh,
because we don't get our,
being a smaller school.
we don't get a bunch of.
If anybody is taking it, you don't see it on
Right.
that.
Right.
And I'm
And I
pretty sure
think
that's
the
where-
other piece, as Louise said, if certain schools don't require everybody to take the AP, even though you've taken the course, that definitely is a different look at the data when because it's a different criteria as to who took the exam. So to look at this even in a little bit different light, looking at it by grade level for the students, and who took it when, who took these exams. European history obviously being the AP that is offered to sophomores. And we can see that we had 18 students who participated in that this last year, and got a mean score of 3.61 for those 18 who took it. Then if we look at our 11th grade, you can see that this is where AP certainly kicks in more with the juniors. There's more opportunities, and certainly more students take advantage of doing APs. This last year, we had 86 juniors who participated in a variety, and of course, that means that maybe in that 86, it might be somebody took 2 or 3 of these, rather than, so it could be multiples. But again, you can see that we're showing some really nice progress in participating in this and doing well in each of these. And then when we get to our 12th grade, we have, again, a number of AP courses that students can take. Those in the 10th grade who didn't take European history can decide to take it as a senior. Macroeconomics is a senior course. It's not offered before that. I think and of course calculus, you do have a lot of juniors who take calculus AV, where there's only one senior who took it this last year. And of course stats is where, my belief would be that the kiddos who took calculus as a junior are now taking stats as a senior. And then, looking at the rest of that
Oh,
12th
right.
grade, because it wouldn't all fit on
Sorry.
one nice little slide. You can see again, a nice, participation by the students, across the board.
So can we go back, 'cause so there's 17 in the 12th grade that scored a 2, right? If,
Ellen, where are you?
so no, if you go back to your next slide,
11?
no, go forward, go forward to 12.
Okay.
Page 212, so there's 17 that scored a 2,
Right,
okay, and now go back to grade 11 total. 15, so that's 32, 34, okay,
okay.
okay. I was wondering,
34
I was.
exams though, that's not 34 children, it's 34
34
exams.
No,
exams.
right, no, I understand that. No, I was wondering if there was a correlation between performance and age. If as the kids got older and were more experienced taking AP, they would perform better. But it's,
It seems to be a pretty constant percentage,
Yeah.
percent
Yeah.
exams.
Yeah.
More kids taking it.
I think what's interesting is the mean score seems to be pretty consistent as you
Yeah.
go, from grade to grade. And then another way you can look at this is equity and excellence. When you look at your whole school, your senior class, your junior class, to what extent is, when you look at the total within a senior class or any one of the other classes, how many students are actually taking and getting a 3 or better on at least one AP exam? That's what that first one is telling us, is that last year's graduating class, you had 70.5% of the students in that graduating class had taken an AP course, one. Now, they might have taken more than that, but they took at least one in the course of their high school experience here in Cohasset. Then if you look at the 12th grade in particular, that again is one exam for each of them and scored better than 3 on the exam. And you can see, 11th and of course 10th grade, there's a smaller number because of a fewer number. There's only really that one course that the kiddos will
The
take.
interesting thing is we graduated 99,
yeah.
or is it
Yeah.
101?
Right.
Yes.
So it's almost percentage.
Right.
Yeah. And then, here's where I put this up. I do have the caveat that I don't think you can totally, because sometimes you're looking at apples and oranges, or donuts and crullers or whatever. But it does let you see, that Cohasset is continuing to show a nice, looking at the how many had scored in the 1-2 percentage-wise and in the 3-5. When you look a little deeper at each one of those, you'd find that some of the districts have a number of other APs, particularly in the arts, like in art courses or music courses, that students can participate in an AP class. Political science is one that seems to show up a lot in some of these. And then, of course, you go back to the comment that not everybody
Is entitled.
Well,
Yes.
Hingham is very restrictive. They
Yes,
only have
right.
19% of their kids in high school take AP tests.
So you have to have the average to get in.
Well, yeah.
But you also have to have completed certain coursework before they'll let you
Exactly.
take the.
Exactly.
take the-
They don't do open
end of the year.
enrollment.
Right,
They-
I had a friend who's, was quite surprised at how we do APs because her daughter couldn't take an AP until she was a senior
Yep.
because of the requirements that led up to that.
And that's not unusual. That
Right.
does help, And as when we started tonight, I applaud you for not doing it that way. I think you're giving the kids the opportunity
Ellen,
to
you had laid out
participate.
the AP restrictions or lack thereof, and I
Yeah, we did that
do,
last year.
and Hingham was,
High.
and I
Hingham
think
was
Dover Sherburne also was also very restrictive, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Not as much because they had 31.5% participation of their high school
But
kids.
Dover, you must have a B or better in order to take the exam.
So it's,
Yeah, so
it,
it's, it's, so that's why something like this, you can look at it, and, it shows, Cohasset, given what you're doing, given what
Oh,
we're
yeah.
doing here with open enrollment and
Yeah.
everybody's taking the exam, is doing a very, very nice job.
Do we know what the what the enrollment number is in Duxbury, the total enrollment?
For the whole
For
district?
the whole district, I'm curious about the size
It's
of.
about 3,200, at least
Oh.
it was, in
Oh.
around there.
Okay.
Last year when I did this, they had 1,106 kids in grades 9 through 12.
Yeah, so it's a bigger. it's
Yeah, I
bigger
knew it was bigger, I
capacity,
just didn't know how much bigger.
Almost double.
Yeah. And then we get to our AP scholars. And they're, the College Board recognizes in four different categories, a number of students who have shown pretty remarkable scores on their AP exams. With AP scholars being those who have received a 3 or better on 3 or more exams. It's not just once, you have to get 3 or more. The AP scholar with honors have to have an average score of 3.25, and they must have scored 3 or higher on 4 or more of the AP exams. Your scholars with distinction have an average AP score of 3.5 and have gotten a 3 or better on 5 or more exams. And then the national AP scholars are those who have an average of 4 and had a 4 or better on 8 or more exams, which is pretty impressive for any of these categories. Is pretty impressive for the students who are recipients of those. To look at that dig a little deeper, here's against the last 5 years. Kind of changing it up, notice I put the years going down instead of the plus. You can see how many test takers, individuals, how many tests were given, and how many AP scholars resulted from that. And again, that's when you look at the criteria for the different aspects of scholar, those are pretty impressive. And so, here in Cohasset this last year, we have 16 AP scholars, 20 scholars with honor, 24 with distinction, and 2 who were recognized as national AP scholars. And at this point, unless you have any other questions.
Yes, I have comments actually. I just had comments going back to the individual tests. And just going back to the language in Spanish, I looked at the national averages for each score for each of the courses that we had scores listed for, just to see like, because I know that some people say, the psych course is easiest to get a 5 in. And so when I saw the macroeconomics thing, I was like, I wonder what the national breakdowns are for that. And it was astounding how much better we did on that test relative to the national statistics of people who get a 5. And we nationally it's 16% get a 5, and we had 70%, which is just remarkable. And it would be nice to clone that teacher, but I mean, what is going on in that classroom? What's that teacher doing that we can learn from? Because if we're not looking at that, I feel like that's I don't know.
I think it's also very important to know who's attracted to that course.
And it's mostly seniors.
They
that get
really
that.
come with some background, and it's not to minimize what
Yeah.
Mr. Welch does. I think it's a person who has to have interest and some mathematical background
Right.
to bring to the course. That being said, and I think that most of the teachers do this, many of the students gravitate to those teachers during lunch, after school, before school, and sometimes they just find their way there easier. He does a remarkable job. He does a remarkable job on U.S. history as well, but other teachers do as well. It's just more global. It's just, this one is very specific.
I was just going to add that he also, previous to the macroeconomics, he was the teacher for U.S. history AP and had remarkable results. I think that maybe while AP students have a certain mindset, perhaps very successful AP teachers have a certain mindset. And I'm not negating the results in the other classes at all. I'm just wondering I'm mimicking what Barbara said, I'm wondering what is different in those classrooms.
Well, we're beating, I mean, we're doing better on average in
Oh, absolutely.
a lot of the class. That's just, it is astounding, like.
He is, and US history was as well.
Sure, I
Right.
mean, anyway.
But I do have to say that if you walk by his classroom at lunch, there are students having their lunch and doing work. If you come in early morning, he's also there. Some of these teachers have been here on Saturday and Sunday morning,
Right.
so.
Well, good for him, well, cause the scores are reflecting it.
And the US history teacher this year, or last year, who's teaching it again this year, has also had remarkable
Mhm.
results.
Mhm.
And I don't mean to, you know, I didn't mean to frame it that way, I mean, obviously there's great stuff going on, so, just,
Many of these teachers that are in, not to minimize what other teachers do as well, but come in on Saturday morning, Sunday morning, with these students and spend time, their own time, working on, they come in on the weekends, so they have a large amount of time and can give a full pretest.
It's 2 to 3
So,
hours.
and they use that as diagnostics, and,
Guess why I know.
well, the other point I was gonna
Sunday
make
brownies.
related to that is that you've got, out of your 5s, 34 of the 5s came in economics and 49 of the 5s came in other courses.
Mhm.
So it's just interesting how it skews our 5s a little bit.
Mhm.
So it just was interesting to consider. And I think again, it's interesting to look at our statistics in the languages again, how they compare nationally.
Mhm. So we have,
So we have some wonderful students who have received letters of congratulations, but we wanted to also formally read their names tonight to congratulate them in a very public way for the accomplishments that they have had in attaining these different levels of scholar, AP Scholar. And so the first group is the AP Scholar, and they, remember, are the ones who have scored 3 or better on 3 or more of the exams. And we start with Liliana Astino, Kyle Burke, Evan Canny, Kerry Dunn, Matthew Fitzpatrick, Seth Honeywell, Mary Langle, Vivian Littlejohn, Alexandra Martini, Natalie McFetridge, Aidan McHugh, Christopher Norton, Luke Norton, Alexander Schubert, Maria Waters, and Ava Worthington. And certainly congratulations to each of those individuals. The next group are the AP Scholar with Honor, and these students had to have an average AP score for all the exams they took of 3.25, and had to have a score of 3 or better on 4 or more exams. The students in that group are Joseph Campadelli, John Donahue, Jackson Dutton, Grace Gomer, Catherine Gibbons, Nicholas Hall, Christian Hanka, Michael Iantoska, Madison Jones, Shay Kearney, Matthew Legg, Madeline Littlejohn, Kaylin McDonald, Liam McHugh, Emma Morris, Liam O'Connell, Julia Richardson, Margaret Seebeck, Yvette Wenner, and Sophie Wolf. Again, congratulations to every single one of them. And then we have our AP Scholars with Distinction. These are the students who have an average AP score of 3.5 and have scored that better than 3 on 5 or more exams. They are Olivia Arnold, Joseph Cavanaro, John Clay, John Kaufman, Megan Considine, Molly Cunning, Morgan Fecker, Alba Fernandez, Rebecca Freddy, Brittany Gumpel, Morgan Healy, Emma Humphrey, Alexandra Lenier, Lanier,
Lanier.
Grace Lucier, Brendan Morrissey, Alexander Norton, Maya Pasek, Nicholas Rosen, Julia Staganelli, Nancy Thomas, Daniel Toomey, Carolyn Venetten, and Maxwell Whetstone. And then we have two students who have earned the distinction of National AP Scholar. They have an average AP score of 4 on all the exams they've taken, and must have at least a 4 on 8 or more exams. And we have two students, Alexandra Lanier and Julia Stanganelli, and pretty impressive. And congratulations to all of them if you're watching
We
this
obviously would
tonight.
have them here, but they're coming home soon.
Yes. So, an outstanding, I think the AP offerings that you have here speak well for the district and for the community, and offering students those opportunities.
They've all received a certificate and a letter of congratulations, so that's been sent already.
Sue, do you mind circulating the PowerPoint presentation to the committee so that we
Absolutely.
have a copy of it? That'd be great.
Yes, I will. It's on Google.
Excellent. We just got our.
I know you just got your
We can finally
Google
connect.
accounts.
We can connect
Yes.
now.
Thank you so much. And while we had Susan here, we also added more to her reporting. We had a very successful professional development day on the 8th. Bart was smiling greatly because everyone had that Wi-Fi going, everyone got online. Teachers did their great workshops. Sue as well conducted one. We had a consultant in, and we conducted a survey. It was a very, very positive day, and I equate that to we've turned a corner. We've really made a difference, and this was that physical proof. So
That was the day at the end of November 8th. It was very energizing to be in the building that day. Everybody was excited about what was going on. It was, and of course, Bart and I definitely were happy that everything worked and that everyone was able to get on the internet and use their computers.
thank you.
Thanks,
But it
Mia.
was,
Thank you.
Excuse me.
but it was a fantastic day, and we've got nothing but positive feedback from people as we've been looking at some further data that we've gotten from them. But we started the day with a general session where the entire faculty came together in the auditorium here. And that was a recommendation from the technology committee as we met to plan out this day, with the idea that there were some things that we wanted to be sure that we addressed with the entire faculty, and that they heard it all from one place. With some things that they had some questions about, some things that they wanted to know a little bit more about, and so bringing them all together was well received by people. They were happy to know that we were addressing things that had some concerns, and that we were moving forward. And so that was the first part of the day, as well as to introduce to them the technology committee, which I would tell you is a fantastic group of people. We have been meeting at least once a month. I think to prepare for the November 8th, we met a couple of times. And it is also representative of the entire district. We have people from Osgood all the way through middle and high school. Bart also is on that committee, as I am as well. And it's a very open committee. They certainly tell you what they think. Which is great, because if people aren't telling you what they think, it's hard to make some good progress. So when we met that day, we addressed two particular things, and this is a little graphic that I put together. One of the things that the staff had some concerns about was that because we haven't really opened up BYOD yet, and we have not had students on the student network, what we've been doing is having students use the public network, because there's no access key, there's no password on that one. What was happening, and we were hearing from staff, was that we were hearing from them, oh, the network goes down. Well, the reality was, this little graphic here, is that your staff network is a wider band of the network, as is the student network, and the public was more like a bicycle path. So that when we were looking at it, when we first looked at it, we had about the capacity for about 115 devices to be on all at the same time, on the bicycle path.
On the public.
On the public.
Yeah.
And we were then, when we started to hear that this was not enough, there was some things that could be tweaked, and that could be upped, and so we were able to bring it up to about 225. But the glitch that came from one of the members of the technology committee was at about noon, networks, you can't use it.
That's because
So,
all the kids are at lunch on their phones.
That's exactly what it was. We said, well, what's happening at noon? They're eating lunch, the one time they can use their phone, they're using it, and so they're jamming the public network.
Right.
And so what we have now done, so one of those things was just to help teachers know, this is why it's been happening. We've gone further, and we're putting this out now to help kids know why things happen. But as of last Tuesday, we have opened the student network and have given the access key. But the hard part is we don't want the access key published. We don't want it on the website. And so we're asking people to be very cautious about how that goes out. Or do we have to have a change of the password on a regular basis?
The students in this district are very resourceful.
Yes, they are.
And before there was access for all, they were quite adept at figuring out what that password was and sharing it with all their friends.
Exactly.
So this makes things less complicated for
Yes.
them to know that they can be on the network and it's okay.
Yes, yes. And it allows the teachers who, one of the slides, I didn't put it in here, but was with like fireworks. And I said to the staff, I said, one of the things that's very exciting is that you're so excited and eager to get using this with your students in your classrooms, that's exciting, and we want to see, we don't want to thwart that. We want to help move that forward. And so opening up the student network, I think is a step in the right direction. The other thing was at the elementary level that had come up, and that was as Bart and Ron reconfigured networks and helped to make things cleaner and work better, also based on an issue that had happened at the elementary level last year with getting into an area they shouldn't have. Some content filters were put in place, and what happens with that is, as Bart would say, you can't build a wall after everybody has access. You have to build the wall and then gradually open up what people want. So what we've asked teachers is, if there are websites that you want and you've vetted them, you've looked at them, you've gone through and you know they're good ones, just send it to Bart and he will open it up for you, and then you'll have access to that. Asking them also is if you can put like 2 or 3 together at a time, or ask your team, does anybody else have one they want? Let's give them 5, 6, as many as we can at a time, just for, anytime you're gonna do something repetitive, it's easier to do it all at one time.
So just one clarification on the content filters, is that everything is blocked and we move them over one at a time, or there's a filter in place that blocks?
There's a filter in place that has certain words or certain.
Gotcha.
So there's many that you can get to anyway, and this is really at the elementary level
Yeah.
where, it's probably the most crucial. The other thing we're going to, as a committee, look at is digital citizenship, and as Cassie said, working with students from little grades all the way up through the high school, what does it mean to be a responsible digital citizen in this technological world we live in? So, on that day, these are the workshops that we offered. Notice they're all Google. It was a Let's Google Day. Let's focus on Google to help teachers to know what's the capabilities You'll notice that we had 3 Google Classroom. We did find a trainer who is a Google certified trainer, and I was able to get her through MassQ. She did a fantastic job for us. But the other workshops were all done by in-house people, which back in August was clearly what teachers said. We really want our own people to be the ones who present the workshops. They know who we are, they know what we're about, they know how we do things, and we think that they would be able to present workshops that would meet our needs. And so that technology committee, when I went in to say, okay, this is what we wanna do, who's gonna do what, stepped right up to the plate and were happy to take part in those different workshops. And so to get to that, who was gonna do what, we put out this Google form. Everything was Google. And this is where the teachers were asked to go to the link, tell us who they are, what's their school, give them a little blurb on what the day is gonna be about, give them what the different workshops would be about, so they'd have some information there. And then their job was to go and fill in this grid for each of the workshops being offered. Is this one you're very interested in, somewhat interested in, or least interested in? And from there, we were able to build this, which I'm just gonna whip through, but these are the sessions, and these are who attended those sessions. And we did that for every workshop that was presented, and we did 3 sessions on that day of 90 minutes each. And so teachers had voice in this, which they reported back they very much appreciated. They weren't just told this is what you're going to go to. In trying to put that together, it was to look at their very interest in trying to put them in as many of those as possible. And I can honestly say I believe that no one was put in a least interested. So if you told me you were least interested in it, we made sure that you didn't end up in that session. And so these are some of the pictures. My photographer, Louise, took these, and we kept the size of each workshop to 20, I think we had a couple that were 22, but to keep them small, so that it wasn't a large group. The other piece we told all of the teachers before, we want you to come with your device. Be ready to work with it, so make sure it's powered up and make sure it's got, it's able to be used for the day. Make sure that you can get onto your Google account. And I'd have to say they came ready to work. They all had their devices, they were able to get on, and so, it was an extremely productive day for everyone. We then also did an evaluation, and these pie charts are more to show you that with Google Forms, some of the data you get once people have filled things out is that you can get a chart like this that shows you in session 1 how many people took each one of the different workshops. So everyone was asked to do this again, and to tell, I'm gonna just show you how it looks when they actually get it. You can do a drop-down menu to say what were the courses that you took in session 1. Then ask, did you feel that would enhance your experience greatly? To not at all. And then 3 bullets about what did you feel was a benefit from the workshop, and were there any things that you think could have made it more valuable? Feedback that we said to people, this is how we can get better at what we do, is if you tell us how you feel things went. And so there's no way you can read this, but this is the data that we have gotten. And it's broken out into sessions, and the technology committee will be looking at this at our next meeting, and it'll give them a lot of information. I think that by and large, the information was this was great. This was one of the best PD days we've had in a long time. We felt like we got a lot out of it. In some cases, I wouldn't probably use this a lot in my own particular classroom, but I learned a lot about things that I didn't know before. And so it was extremely, very positive. And as I say, even during the day, as we walked around, people were energized. One of the things I said in the morning meeting, now the 1 o'clock session after lunch. The difficulty is, please come back at 1 o'clock, and please come back on time so that we can get started, and they were there. They were right back and eager to do that last workshop, and so that brings the question, what's next? I think one of the things that comes out of a day like that is that we now have a cadre of teachers who the teachers themselves also know these are the people I can go to ask questions about Google Docs or basic, how do I use the basic Google Drive. I can go to Mike Welsh to find out about how to do Google Forms in Flubaroo, which is a nice little way that you can create a quiz in Google Forms and it grades it. And,
It grades itself.
Yeah, and I think he showed it to you the night that he happened
Yeah.
to be here. We will be looking toward March, which is our next full day PD, and what can we offer. But in between, how can we keep the momentum going? I'm hearing that it's already pretty much out there, that people are trying things and are moving forward. But I think that piece of having a number of people on staff who you now know, this wasn't a one day that came in and said, see you later. These are people I can go and contact and get more information if I want. Next things for the technology committee, we're actually having a meeting tomorrow, and we will be looking at that specifications for devices. So, and we want to get that out by next week.
For Black Friday.
Because for Black Friday is coming. So Bart has been doing, he's kind of been doing a reach out to other tech directors in the state. I've done kind of a national search on what do people put out there, in the idea that, can we look and see what would be some things that people would need to know, so that they could move forward. I did put out to the staff that I am looking for maybe 3 to 4 people to pilot a BYOD in the very near future. And I have people who are already saying, oh, I'd like to do that. I'd like to be part of that. So, I think we're moving forward. It's exciting to see it coming to fruition. One of the things I did in the open session was to do like a walk down memory lane. As to where were we back like in 2011 when the cohort of teachers who took the Bridgewater State courses.
The wireless.
Yeah. And where are we now?
Right.
And where are we going with the whole idea that by 2021, I see great things.
I think that doing a PD like this where you have so much fun, to me it's fun. Some of them were probably a little bit stymied when they walked into the rooms, but I think that once they see the possibilities, even some of the ones who are the most hesitant might get excited enough that they might walk out and think, well, I don't see how I would use it with my classroom. But once they're in the classroom and they see the students doing things, maybe that would spur them on and get them more excited about it. I mean, how can you not be excited about this?
Yeah.
This has been so long coming.
Yes.
Sue and I have talked about how to move that along, because many of these teachers who are on professional licensure need professional development hours, and they need to block in 10. So this gives them about 6. So we talked about putting some messages out once they've played with it for a week or so, and give them the incentive that if they invite one of the administrators to see it in practice in the classroom, that would be the added 4, and we would issue a certificate of 10 PDP. So that's an encouragement.
I think one of the comments that we heard, which was one of our goals as putting the whole day together, was most people came, I'd say a high percentage came out saying, I got something that I can use tomorrow. And that starts the
And
ball
that
rolling.
sparks the beginning. It's like
Exactly.
a rolling ball.
Exactly.
It's like a beach ball. It just
Yeah,
keeps going and
exactly.
going and going.
Yeah.
Did you have a question, Amanda?
Not a question, more just a comment. I
sorry,
really
you-
appreciate the summary of the PD. There was some talk at the PSO meeting at Osgood the other day where parents were kind of wondering what actually happens during, especially with the additional half days next year. So I don't know if there's a way to put this summary information, maybe even a couple of those images like on our website, or
Yeah.
even do a Blackboard Connect after a professional development day and say, this is what we did and here's some pictures. 'Cause I think it's, as a parent, it's nice to hear this is what the teachers are doing to kind of grow their skills and get a sense of.
I did tweet that out that morning. Tweet
I'm on
with a picture.
Facebook, so I didn't.
And Cassie will be putting those, I mean, they're still trying to get their time to.
Yeah.
I think you have a good point. I mean, I think the whole idea, I call it PR, you know, is how do
Yes.
we
Yeah.
let people know what we're doing,
Right.
and when we're
Right.
doing something that came off well, to spread that word is a good, very good.
Especially the images, you know, it just says like, we're using this time in a constructive way and it's gonna be great in the classroom.
I wanted to echo that because I think that this is where the schools in the past we haven't claimed credit for what we do well. And this is an example of hallelujah. Not only was it a great day, but it shows where we're trying to head as a district overall. I think the parents is one channel that needs to just get a quick update, but I also think, frankly, capital budget, I mean, they were huge advocates of this, and their advocacy was contingent on us actually doing the professional development, and
on
so
results.
and if we're gonna be going back to capital in the spring, you know, I think you wanna take this moment when it's natural and it's exciting news to somehow figure out how to share it with them, and it's probably not necessarily this presentation, but a summary, a cover note, something to capital budget, to Sam. I mean, Brian Host and Sam, and there's a bunch of people on that committee that will really understand what you're trying to do here and why this is so important. So I think we need to claim credit on this one.
Yeah. And I think at the same time to almost, you believed in us in funding something.
Thank you.
And here's a thank you, and let's show you this is how we're using that, and we are moving this forward.
It would be a huge moment to do that before we go back in March and
It
say.
is.
That's
Let's just do better.
I was just gonna say, this isn't the right word at all, but it's almost heartwarming, to see this all done so well. It's just, the fact that you have the feedback right away, that the teachers had choice, that the teachers had buy-in and their own leadership within it, is just, I think that's so much more meaningful, and that they're leaving saying, I can use this in my classroom. There's nothing more frustrating than a useless professional development day that you're told to go to, and there's no connection to your school or ownership, and the fact that the feedback's already here today is just so great, and it's helping you map where you're going is just it's a great thing to highlight, and it's just so reassuring to know that we're doing this right and executing the plan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have turned the corner.
Clearly.
We also discussed yesterday at our leadership meeting, to follow up with what students volunteered, that we find the need for, given the policies that we've established on using technology, that teachers, staff are not to communicate with students on a professional place. So we have decided to open the student email for Cohasset for grades 9 to 12. So they will all have a Cohasset email, therefore making it safe for staff and students to communicate. And that was a very big move that we had Bart meet with us and talk about, okay, let's talk about the pitfalls. Are there any, and the greatest advantages of being in control of that email and being safe. So that is opening very soon as Bart can open the door.
And what grades was that?
9 to 12.
9 to 12.
Okay.
So they will have at cohassetk12.org emails.
So they can email the teacher through that, and the teacher can email them.
Yes.
What
And
about
we did
extra,
talk-
I'm sorry, what about extracurricular activities?
That also would be open. They would be, hopefully, they would be able to email coaches and so on. We did, there may be a discussion about coaches who are not educators here. That's a conversation for Ron and for Bart when I meet with Ron. We were to meet yesterday and we've rescheduled, so that is on the agenda. Talk about how can we expand that a bit.
I just wanna share the observation, Meg has had email access, from 6th grade on, and not that we need to go to the middle school, but I would just reflect on the fact that it's made her more responsible for communicating with her teachers about when an issue arises or if she has a question. She has a venue and a mechanism to take ownership for it instead of having to come through me as the parent. So I've liked that transition as a middle school parent, where it's not me stepping in and saying, well, I'll just email so-and-so your question. So I throw that out there as an observation.
No, we've discussed about middle school, but there are certainly legal issues about 6th graders having emails. So most of those emails would be owned by parents. There's an age limit and restrictions to email and that kind of issue that we need to settle before.
They have to be
we go.
13?
They have to be 13.
Yeah.
To own an email account.
I throw it out there that
Right.
at FAIR they've had 6th graders with email accounts, so there must be, I don't know if the independent
It may be
school.
that you own the account?
No,
Some of it can be too, that it's a, and I don't
Got it.
know, Katie, is it, because we discussed this.
It's an
I think,
@fair.org.
that it's almost like in a bubble,
Right.
that it doesn't, going out beyond the school.
no, it's a
doesn't
school
even-
network, no, it's absolutely, so it's an @fair.org, and the communication is only, it's so.
In-house, right.
In-house, and
Right,
so
yeah.
for group projects, another perfect example
That's
is
a
that
control.
group project,
Right.
which is something that
Right.
students land out doing. So it's internal,
Right.
and just like we have here, our .org, there's a mass to a Gmail, behind it.
Right.
The rationale was we can always add, but we can never take back.
No, I understand.
So 9/12 is the start, we can add.
I just wanted to share that it
Yeah,
does,
it is valuable.
as we think about that independence for those middle schoolers
Right.
and advocating in a way, it's useful.
Did you have a question?
Thank you so much.
Oh, I was just gonna say, you can probably just have if an outside coach comes in to have a email for like a start and an end date, you can probably do that, right?
That's a conversation with Ron,
Right.
right?
As to what can
Figure
you do.
they can
about
figure
it.
that out. I know like I have like a seasonal email that only works for a certain amount of time and then it disappears
Mhm.
Right.
for another educational institution, so.
Yeah.
You turn me on and off.
Actually, with the trainer, when she came in, we hooked her up to have access to things here that would only be for that period of time, and then we cut the ties.
Good.
Anything
Yeah, I have
else?
to read all the policies and all that stuff inside.
Anything else?
That is it.
Okay. So
Next
next is,
announcement for later, that's all.
okay.
I can do it now if you like.
Sure.
It's, I just want to congratulate Marilyn Harridan, who is our manager for food services. And she has a wonderful little certificate here. She has completed her level 1 certification in nutrition, School Nutrition Association. And she is working towards her other levels as well. So, you know, as we talk about nutrition and being aware of what's good for children and continuing learning, I just didn't want to minimize the recognition that she's still working towards
That's great.
even more excellence. I want to congratulate her for that.
Very good. Very good. She's brought some great things into the district and she does a great job.
Very dedicated.
Yeah. She worked through that whole school lunch thing where nobody was buying them because they were pretty miserable.
Whole wheat cookies.
And fixed things and, yeah. Anyway, okay, so next item on our agenda is the superintendent update. And we need to have a discussion amongst ourselves about where we're headed in this because we are getting questions. I would start by saying that since Mrs. Demas has stepped into the role of interim superintendent as of July 1st, and through a transition period prior to that, we have all seen some great progress. The way you've handled items in the district has been strategic, supportive of the people in the district, very professional on many different levels. We're all delighted with the direction that we have seen our district take. People in the buildings are happy. We are very happy. Thank you. We are very happy. Anybody want to add any more comments to that? There have been the good, the bad, and the ugly, as there always are in school districts. There are difficult situations, and there are cause for celebration. And you've handled them all very, very well. Thank you. So we appreciate the expertise and the professionalism that you have brought us. Any other comments?
Sure.
Go. You go.
Give me a
Sure.
start for my feet first.
I could go for an hour, but
No, I think
there are 5 of us.
Yeah, I think we could all go for an hour, and I think, can I call you Louise?
Yes.
Because
I
I
just
said Mrs.
I wasn't
Demas
your
for the
counselor
studio
or your
audience.
teacher.
For the audience.
Call me Louise.
I should have
Miss
said May I?
Giuliano, though, is going to be.
Miss Giuliano, I know. No, I've been particularly impressed with the scope of your ability in the operational area, coming out of curriculum, focused on curriculum, focused on teaching. You've been able to jump in and handle operational situations quickly, effectively, efficiently, with parents, with townspeople, with people within the district, and I don't want this to sound the way it's going to sound, but it was a pleasant surprise.
I understand.
Not having had visibility to you handling
Right.
operational
Not seeing this
issues,
side of me
not
is
seeing
what
that
you're
side of me. I was like, wow, she gets it. She knows how to handle it. She's interacting with the town. She knows people. I mean, just yesterday morning when you and I were at emergency management and Chris was talking about an issue, he's like, oh my God, you're not yelling at me, you know? And it could have been an issue to be yelled at, but it wasn't. You know, you handled it well, and I think that in our small community, I think these relationships with the town that we as a group are trying to foster, that you as an administrative team are working on very diligently, are most important for us. Because the town may be getting a little bit bigger, but it's never gonna be a big town, you know, and the pot of money is gonna be finite at some point in time, and relationships are, the most important thing in any transaction is how you treat people, and, the words respect, transparent, honest, have come to the forefront several times.
Thank you. I will continue with what I was saying, that our major concern as a school committee is having stability in the district. And we've been taking a long, hard look at that since July 1st. To echo what Ellen said, your expertise and your professionalism is great. Your operational acumen has been fabulous. You have staffed several positions or led staffing of several positions that are key to our district, and you have really gone above and beyond in helping us move forward. Barbara?
I was just gonna say, from sitting in the audience for a lot of years, before I joined school committee, I was like, holy mackerel, you have to be an expert in a lot. Maybe if I sit here for 10 years, I'll be ready to be on school committee. So I just going to so many different meetings and seeing what the superintendent's job entails. You know, for several years I've recognized that it is a challenging job. No one's going to be happy with their superintendent every single day. Parents always going to have some gripe. That's the nature of having a lot of students in a lot of buildings, and that's the way it is, but I've been really pleased with how you've handled things. I think you have great management skills. I think, as Ellen said, it was an untapped or unrecognized skill that you had, because it wasn't your job as,
And it also wasn't on our radar screen
Yeah.
to be watching that.
for sure. But the people that you've brought in, John and Sue, have been fantastic, which, again, who you've been able to attract. I think I told you when we sort of first met, when you came as the interim, that was one of the things that most impressed me. I think that says a lot. People who want to work with you, who you want to work with. And yet from going through some of the hiring processes with you, seeing that you have a very democratic process, take input, the way you structure getting people's input is done in a very teacher way, so that everybody finds their way to express themselves. It's not the loudest mouth in the room. I love that you're a curriculum person in this position. I wouldn't want a curriculum person who couldn't handle operations, but you show you can do both, and at the end of the day, it's about educating the students, and I think having come from an educational background and being able to really, I would think you can connect with the teachers and understand their lives. I think it's great. So from what I can see, I really don't think we could do any better.
Thank you. So I guess I come to work tomorrow.
You can take Thanksgiving off.
Better.
Thanksgiving.
Oh, no, you gotta come to the
Can I take
football
the
game.
Friday too, please?
Katie?
I in kind of preparing for tonight, I went back to the conversation we had with the MASC about superintendent searches, and reflected a little bit on what does this district need, what are the criteria that we look for in our next superintendent, and I would echo what other folks have already said, but two things that have struck me. One is your ability to listen, and the entry plan you put together in terms of pinpointing the challenges in particular that the district faces, not just where we know we're doing well, but frankly, I think you really did a nice job of identifying those challenges and frankly incorporating them into your goals for this year. Gives me comfort that you've got a vision for the future that's going to move this district forward, not just build on what we're already doing well, but actually address maybe some things that we need to get better on. And so when I was thinking about the selection criteria, that was the vision for the future that really echoes with maybe some of the challenges the district has. That was important. The other thing, there were two other things. One was just the rapport and trust, in particular, that you've been able to develop with staff and our teachers union, and I think that is an important deficit we've had. And so I appreciate that you've been able to bring that to the table and hopefully continue that. Last but not least, is, and I don't think it's been mentioned, but moral compass. It sounds kind of high and mighty, but honestly, you talk a lot about both, and I've seen it in leadership team meetings, but I've also seen it talking about diversity. And for us, we may not be a diverse community, but are there other ways that we can bring diversity in? Perhaps it's through our staff. Maybe it's in how we think about our curriculum. And the fact that we're focused on all students and the UDL initiative behind that. So that the equity, the moral compass piece was important. It was another nuance. So I have nothing but glowing things to say, and I really think that continuity is the fastest path forward to making big changes in the district. And with a vision of the future that ties to some of our challenges, there's an opportunity.
Amanda?
Well, to echo what everybody has said, I've been
I feel
tremendous.
like I'm at a roast.
Yeah, I know.
It's hard to be last.
Just tremendously happy with all the changes that I've seen, but best for the students, or I think it should be done this way because that's what's best for kids, or that's what's best for the kiddos, or whatever the term may be. And the cherubs. And
Cherubs, yes.
Cherubs and kiddos.
I think that at the end of the day, that's always what's the most important to us, to myself as a parent and as a school committee member, that what we're doing is always in the best interest of the kids. And I know that that's always at the center of your decision making,
Sure.
and that means a lot to me. I also have been really impressed with your ability to empower the staff and your leadership. I think they just seem very invigorated this year, and I'm hopeful that that will translate to every single classroom, because their ability to interact with their staff in a really pleasant way every day just makes coming to work better for everybody. And I also think you have tremendous institutional knowledge that we couldn't just go out and find in somebody else. All of the years that you've been here, and knowing the good of our district, knowing the bad, our strengths and weaknesses is a tremendous asset that we couldn't just find.
Right. So we wanted to have this public discussion to kind of set the stage for our next step, which would be to ask you to stay.
And be roasted again.
Well, at least once a year. So we have to vote on this in public also, but again, we wanted to have this public discussion, and we've been getting lots of questions about where are you going, what are you doing, when are you going to get started. We really feel strongly that this would be a great thing for our district, for you to stay and maintain and continue the progress that we've seen in a very short period of time, which obviously makes our district, I keep using the stability word, but that's what it is, and that's what it's about, stability and progress. So I don't believe that we will take a vote tonight. I think we will take a vote at our next meeting. But our intent is that we would, for the first time in a very, very long time, promote someone from within here. And I think that sends a strong message also.
Thank you. I respect all of you, as I do the district, and I don't want to minimize that. I also have a Finnish compulsion, and I use that often, and Sue suffers from the same affliction, which means we stay very long. And I always use the story of my only detention was I wouldn't let the table go until I fixed all the books, and the teacher said, I'll keep you in for recess, and I said, I don't care, I'm not finished. So that this isn't finished, and I said that to you initially, that was my reason for stepping up and helping at that point. We're not finished. We started on a mission to, Sue and I, with the very first course of, can you turn this computer on, and let's see what you can do with it, to we have a vision that we need to do technology, and we have a vision that in the very first meeting that I sat here, my concern was that we did not reach all children, that we have some very bright, highly achieving children, and that we have children we've identified as having needs, but we forget what's inside the sandwich. And we cannot ignore that we are a diverse community, whether it does not have to be ethnic, it does not have to be color, it does not have to be socioeconomic. We are different, we are diversified. And I had an art teacher way back when who said to me, teaching in a public school is like a loaf of sliced bread. You get a little bit of every grain when you take a slice. And I keep remembering that analogy, that we have a little bit of everything. So we're not finished until that's really embedded in understanding that that's who we are. So I'm thankful you take that credit to me. And you're right, it's always about what's good for kids, what's good for those cherubs. And in so doing, and also protecting teachers. So I think that in many of my decisions, it's not always about what's good for kids. It's also about what can I do to protect the leadership and the teachers so that they do go out and they do feel respected, and I respect them greatly. I think that in the past we've hired greatly, for vetting out all of those and having insight to say we need to hire earlier, and their ideas have been very rich. And you're right, the leadership together works. In addition, we laugh a lot. I get John to keel over and laugh. Good thing he's not drinking too much. There we go. Doesn't take much. So, thank you.
So I think it's safe to say, we're not gonna conduct a search.
Exactly.
We're not, so just so the community knows, we're not gonna
Yes.
conduct an external search, we're not gonna employ any consultants, we're
Right.
not gonna put together committees,
Right.
okay?
Because we feel that we already have the best candidate right here
Right
with
here.
us.
I respect that you will wait to take that vote because I think that the community needs a voice. So I do respect that.
Okay. So at our next meeting, this will be on the agenda again, and we will take a vote that meeting. Okay? All right. So, report from subcommittees of the school committee. I just want to have a little bit of a discussion with the four of you about how we can make this more, what's the word I want? A more productive update for us on what we're all doing respectively in our groups, without maybe dragging out a conversation for 20 minutes or a half an hour at every meeting. So I'd like you to think about this for our next meeting. And maybe we can streamline the process, maybe we can do a quick note to people so that we include it in the packet, so that we get updated. I don't know how best to handle it, but our meetings have been longer and longer. We're trying to not have people here until 11 o'clock at night. And this is one area that sometimes goes a little bit long. So I'm looking for ideas from all of you, okay? We're all doing a lot of work, like Amanda said. She spends a lot of quality time with Louise, and we all do. We all do. I mean, we're here during the day, we're here after hours. And I'm not trying to downplay any of that work. I'm just trying to make the meeting itself a little bit more fluid and move a little bit differently.
Can we do that, like an update, like put it on a Google Doc that everybody can, it's not for comment, it just, you add your paragraph and update, and then it's always on the Google Doc and it can
Yep.
be reviewed at
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Google Doc can also be constructed so that you can comment as you go.
Right.
And you
Like
can
So
add.
we're not allowed to
We
comment.
can't.
Yeah, we
can't
can't-
deliberate
we
on
can't
anything.
comment
Can't
on
deliberate, that would be
understand.
considered
Yeah.
deliberation.
It would be restricted to just information.
Yeah.
So we could create an informational Google Doc
Right.
that gets included in our electronic packets, so we know what everybody's been doing. And then if we have questions on anything, we could ask them
Ask
in
them
the meeting.
We could also post that
Right,
on the website so people who want to know where
Right.
we've gone or what information.
right, because when, 90% of the time when we report out here, I just totally lost my train of thought. Okay, go ahead.
No,
I'm glad that happens.
It'll come back, I can say that.
I'm all for streamlining this conversation, and I think a Google Doc is the right way to do it, because I think we're all doing so many different things, but on the other hand, I do wanna know what happened at Capitol on Monday night. And I've
Absolutely.
waited until tonight to hear that, but if there's another way to, for somebody just to go in and literally take, 3 minutes over a cup of coffee and just insert the key, I don't necessarily want to have to take the time to make that a public document. Is that bad to say?
No. They're public meetings, so.
They're
Yeah.
public meetings.
And it would be captured in our minutes after we discuss it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm fine talking about what happened at Capitol the other night.
No, there's just so many things that we need to be
Right.
sharing in terms of what meetings we've been at and what's happened, so that you're aware. Like, I feel it's important that the committee knows from long range planning that the next two meetings, a year-over-year target for the schools is gonna be set, so.
Yep.
That's the kind of stuff that needs to get communicated, it doesn't necessarily have to be communicated in a long series of updates here, but we
Right.
need to have a mechanism.
Well, like I said,
Sharing.
that's why I'm kind of laying it out here for the next meeting for discussion.
And I think if there's really key things like that, you mentioned, I just wanna
Right.
highlight what was on the Google Doc for the public to, you know,
Yeah.
just to
Right.
make sure nobody missed it and, yeah. So that, I think it's still fine that we can highlight it, but
Right.
every last detail needs to be shared in public, I mean, at the meeting.
Yep.
And Sue will have a Google Doc workshops.
I did see that come through my email, but I haven't read it yet. Okay. All right, so let's do our reports from subcommittees, because we do have some things that we should cover.
I don't wanna talk.
What?
I said, I don't wanna talk.
You don't wanna talk?
No, I'm kidding. Always wanna talk.
Okay.
Do you wanna cover capital?
You want to?
Or I can talk about security if you'd like for capital. Should we start with computers?
Yeah, so Amanda and I were at capital budgets, and after they had some adjustments on the water items on the warrant, and so then we were the only ones there, which was fine. John addressed Brian Ho's concern about the bus lease and extending it 6 months. Is a good thing, because Brian was concerned about, you know, if it ends mid-year, what are we gonna do? It took us so long to ramp up on this one. He encouraged us to start thinking about what happens now, June of 18, going forward, and what those different scenarios are. And we sent, Amanda and I sent John and Louise kind of a recap, because it obviously involves some of the requests that they had made. Laser printers have to come off because they don't hit the threshold. Educator desks, Sam was confused because there were 2 different amounts, same with the playground.
Educator what?
Desks.
Oh, desks.
Teachers'
Desks.
desks. There was.
I thought you said debt.
Well, that's what it
What?
says on the spreadsheet,
Oh,
yeah.
that's funny.
Yeah.
Very well be.
They also, Nathan offered to kind of, they talked extensively about the sacred capital budget spreadsheet and trying to make it more user-friendly, and,
It could become sacred if it were more user-friendly.
yeah, you know, and taking things off and things that have been appropriated and done, putting it on a different tab,
Yeah.
things that are on there that no one knows why they're on there, that have no amounts on there, like fire alarms high school. We don't know who submitted it, there's no amounts, there's no year. And so it's just kind of a lot of crazy things. They talked about putting the requester, what department's making the request for which department, so that we know that there are other departments that make requests for the schools and for other entities, so that the right people are asked the questions about the appropriations that they've asked for. And then we had quite a conversation about the blast fragment retention film, and John custodians to measure every first floor window and door, and we calculated out the square footage of every pane of glass on the 3 buildings, and based on the initial 2 or 3 year old quote amount of $10 per square foot.
Installed.
Yep, installed. We kind of have a head start on that. John has since sent it on to Brian Joyce and Mark Kelly to do some more current costing analysis on that. We just let capital budget know, you know, we're gonna be coming at
Yeah.
this. For spring, there was a healthy dialogue about exactly what do we want the film to do? Is it the right thing to do? Is it, are we looking for a car bomb blast? Are we looking for whatever, you know, just the request was that we're very clear on what we want this safety mechanism to do. And then there was conversation on the Chromebook lease, and then the equity devices, and we highlighted the fact that we have a new survey results, and I hope I didn't misspeak, but it was about children how the percentage that was originally allocated across Cohasset Middle High School wasn't appropriate when you start with the younger ages and you move on up, and we shared that. And Brian had concern that it was his recollection in the original equity device plan that it was for families that could not afford devices, and then having additional devices in the classroom for the random student who might have forgotten to bring their device in, and not necessarily were the equity devices and the supplemental devices for families who just didn't want to send their kid in with a device. So it was his recollection, and I wasn't part of the original, so I couldn't speak to it. I just said we'd bring it back. They want to relook. He would like to relook at the survey and get a better understanding of exactly what the survey was, and are we evolving from the original equity device plan into something different, and have a bigger conversation about it.
I have a little concern, and it's, I'm gonna try to phrase this very carefully. I don't think it's our judgment to decide what parents can afford and what they do not buy. I would not want to be the judge of their economic standing. And that sort of sounds that way. I wouldn't want to ask, can you afford it, or what's your annual income? You don't have a device. That's all I need to know. That would concern me to go into that economic piece. The other is, I think we have another survey, and that's why, Sue is working with Bart in getting the correct information to give out to families and say, here's what we're looking for. Can you help us out? This is valuable. So what goes out and comes back becomes a different number, and we have a more accurate number to give those who come to us without them. And I think it's that simple for children. It's you haven't come with one, let us supply you with one. I'd like to take that philosophy back. But I think another survey would be accurate. I have all of the surveys. He is welcome to come look at them. I will put them in a basket. But this is the most accurate number we have at the moment.
And I think the questions that Brian is asking are the right ones.
Correct.
Just in terms of, you've worked with Capital, you've worked with Brian. I think that when we're ready, and it's probably not till January, I think we have an offline conversation with some of the key stakeholders in Capital. Probably the two liaisons, directly of which Brian is one of them, and update them on all the great stuff that's happened, update them philosophically on where we are in terms of the next phase. And I'm happy to remind Brian that the equity number we had in there was a complete swag at the time. It was based on free and reduced lunch. And that was our only number that we could hang our hats on, absent an actual survey. We now have an actual survey. The free and reduced lunch number was, we took it, I think it was 8% of the time, we rounded it to 10. That was our target in terms of the number of devices. When we actually surveyed parents in terms of what was available, it was more like 25% of the students. And so I think this can be managed. I don't think that you don't want to dump data on Brian because he'll analyze it for us. But I think having he wants to understand, and that's fine. And I think taking it offline and having a pre-conversation with some of the key stakeholders.
I have the utmost respect for Brian and for his insight, and you're right. He's asking the correct questions and daring us to consider how we've done this and what does it look like. I think I wish I'd been there to say this is a snapshot in time. This is what we're dealing with right now, so it's very important to get that information to families in a timely manner, particularly before the holidays. And so that we have all of this almost 6-8 months to really start thinking about ideas and to get to, particularly to get to families that if there is not a device, it does not have to be the state of the art. Unlike if I was sending my child to college, I would want the best memory, the best RAM, the most durability, the most accessible, the most accurate for the curriculum. We will control the website. We just need a vehicle. So It doesn't that's the message we need to get out. And to know that this was a snapshot in time to say this is what we're looking at, so how can we get the information out to sort of say, okay, help us out to get this in. We may go to get free kind of iPads that have been given to us that we can get supply for them. It's a snapshot in time, and the money issue, the dollar amount was to say, this is what we're looking at right now. It's sort of, I don't want to surprise you down the end if this doesn't happen.
Right, and I think he appreciated that, but I think, he just wants to have the conversation, and as we know, until the warrant goes to print, you know, we have the ability to continue to evolve the request as you get more data.
Okay.
So, I think Katie's spot on, you should have a meeting with him, you should have the conversation, about what you've collected, what you've done, and where you think it's gonna go, and, I think it'll make the process after the holidays easier.
My thought was to do another survey in February, so that we've gone through the season in 5 months to see what's happening. Are we having more purchases? Then we can sort of anticipate what that will look like in another 4 months. And get a better, and more accurate, and then have that conversation.
And Ellen's comment on the warrant is a good segue into an email that I received, I think it was today, was it today, Tracy? On behalf, Tracy sent it on behalf of Chris, and he was asking for annual town meeting in the spring if we want to vote on warrant articles pertaining to the schools going forward. And I said, absolutely.
Yeah, I brought
It's
it up to him.
yeah, it's amazing to me that we don't. I mean, we've got capital budget weighing in, we've got advisory weighing in, and we've got Board of Selectmen weighing in, and we've got school items on the warrant, and
We look silent.
yeah, we look like dummies, not, you know, like dumb in the non-speaking way, not dumb stupid.
Well,
Okay.
it hit me in May because I had friends of mine who came to town meeting to support
Right.
stabilization, and because we hadn't articulated our position in the warrant, they're like, do we vote yes or no? Just tell us what you want us
Yeah.
to do. And I think it's very important, and I had mentioned that to Chris, and also we're trying to streamline the whole process to make the presentations and the information flow and the document flow easier than it was for special town meeting, because we all don't need to be going to 3 and 4 capital budget and advisory committee meetings to say the same thing
Right.
over and over again.
Yeah, that's great.
So, my response was yes.
Yes.
And I guess you all agree that that was the correct one, yeah. Also, and I'm kind of shifting gears here just because there were a couple of items that I did wanna bring up. On December 13th, Louise and the school committee, if you so desire, will make a presentation to the Board of Selectmen on goals.
Date again?
December 13th. We spoke about it at our meeting with Chris and Kevin.
Are we presenting both school committee goals and superintendent goals?
We'll be
or
there for conversation, yes.
conversation? Okay.
Yep. And then just a reminder for folks that we're still, I don't believe we named a master plan representative, did we?
Not. We have the master plan and the 250.
And 250, we already know that Ellen's out
Well,
on that one.
well, Glenn Pratt did ask me about it yesterday morning.
He was supposed to send me information and didn't.
Okay,
Because I told
I
him to
thought he
send
said-
the information and I would, I would
What-
bring it up to the committee, but he was going to send me more information so that I would have an idea about what we were speaking about. And I haven't received anything from him. So,
Okay.
I mean, I can certainly call him again.
I think it's someone to represent the school district. He would very much like to have involvement of the kids in whatever celebration. It's 3 years from now. And there's, as we all know, there's money on the warrant to support it. In terms of what it's gonna look like, nobody knows, because they haven't really started to meet yet. So it's someone that could liaise from the schools and, maybe get community service interest from kids to participate, or ideas, or presentations, or, what's 3 years from now, 2019? No, 2020. Be 2020. You know, what does education look like in 2020 in Cohasset Public Schools? We're in year 4 of it. So
he really doesn't have an idea of what they're looking for, in
no,
other words.
no, but I'll do it. I'll do it.
You wanna ride that float again?
I'm building my own float.
I think it'd be a great thing to get buy-in from maybe the history department, you know, do a little bit of lessoning about, you know, where our town has started and where it is currently in the 250th year and where we're going forward.
So I'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
So on the master plan, can I ask a niggly question? Every meeting that I ever see is on the same night as a school committee
Yeah,
meeting, so
I know.
how
I've
can
never
we-
been able to participate.
I don't know, I mean,
And at the beginning, I sent messages through and
I
said,
know you
I'm
did.
sorry, we have school committee that night.
So, I know that, I know we have 2 seats on this, but I just, with, Wednesday nights being the meeting night,
Yeah, we can't do that.
I don't know, that's my big question again is, it's obviously something that we should participate in, but I don't know how scheduling wise it's gonna work out. And that's
Okay.
my big question back to Chris and Clark Brewer
Clark,
is,
Well, can't they do every other night? Every other Wednesday, not our Wednesdays?
that's always been the.
But it's always been on a school committee night coincidentally, so.
But you know what?
So that's.
We're the only committee that publishes their schedule a year in advance, so.
That's true.
Everybody ought to.
Everybody should know
No, I
what
hear
we're
you, so
meeting.
it's hard for us to raise our hands when we
Right.
know that we're not gonna be able to attend any
Right.
other meetings. I don't mean to, that sounds
No.
like it, but it's frustrating, cause for a year I wanted to at least hear what's going on.
Okay, you know what, I'll reach out to Clark again. The last time I reached out to him, he didn't respond, but I think it was because the planning process was so new that he didn't have an idea of what was going on. So I will message Clark and Chris. So be on the lookout, Tracy. About the, excuse me, the seat on the master plan committee, and ask what they anticipate that their meeting schedule might look like.
And just one update from Budget and Finance Committee. We spent some time going through the budget line item by line item, and Ellen and I had come up with a proposal to try and at least reduce the number of line items that get presented to the school committee. If you remember, there's 326 line items in the budget that gets reviewed. We came up with a framework which we presented to John and Louise, which simplifies it, not greatly, but it takes out line items that have been used in 5 years. On some line items that are like $5,000 or less, it collapses it to a summary. So through that process, we were able to reduce it down to like 250. So it's not radically changing it, but hopefully it'll make it more streamlined in terms of what we're looking at, and we really left it in John and Louise's capable hands to take it from there. It was really a recommendation on less is more in some ways, and so that was one thing that we did. The second thing is we had pulled together a budget message which incorporated some of the thinking from last year's budget message, plus the work that Louise had done with the leadership team to try and articulate some of the bigger objectives of the district. There's a draft of that, and I'd like to get any comments from you, Louise, or John, so I'll send you an email tomorrow. And then the goal would be to have a conversation with the full committee on that message on November 30th meeting, and that would be actually a great thing for us to have a conversation with the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
Because I think that kind of encapsulates not only what are we trying to do from a financial perspective, but also what are we trying to do in terms of moving the district forward. So
I'm
that
just looking
plus,
at posting for the 30th would have to be done on the 23rd. I mean, it could be done on the 28th, but in order for us to get packets, it would have to be done on the 23rd because of the holiday, the 2 days off. So if you could forward that to Louise, so that Jennifer can put it in our packets when she sends them out on the 23rd, and then if we need to make any adjustments to the agenda, we can do that on the 28th.
Do we wanna, there was another meeting where it was just easier for Jennifer to do the packets that Monday, distribute them electronically, and
We can pick them up.
we could pick up copies, so I'm flexible, I'm frankly not gonna be looking at a packet.
Over Thanksgiving?
Over Thanksgiving, I'm not even physically here to get a packet, I mean, I could, and I'm
You
not.
could open up your computer.
And I'm not gonna open up, I'll just be very clear, I'm not gonna open up my computer. So, I'm flexible in terms of when I receive my
Okay,
materials.
okay,
And how other people feel, but.
Yeah, that's fine, so Monday, November 28th,
Yep,
the packets will be here and not, they won't be mailed. We'll pick them up, so she doesn't have to get them out before Thanksgiving, she can do them Monday morning.
If I'll have a computer, she can scan them and send them to you, so that you at least have them to look at should you want to, but the packets will be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That would be great, she'll love that. She loves scanning.
yeah, I feel it.
Oh my god, I could.
It is so hot in here.
I know, but I do have, I'm so sorry, but I do have a few more things
That's fine.
to talk about. Are you done?
No, I am done.
Okay.
The heat
I
is
tried
gonna
to
make
stop
you.
Well,
Can I get you some more water?
My problem is I've had too much water
Maybe we
to
should
drink,
go
that's
to
why.
the work.
Yes,
So the coffee and 2 of these.
yeah.
Okay,
Same.
so I'm gonna go back to special town meeting, and
Yes.
I mentioned this to Jean, and, I think that we are involved in 3, warrant articles, and at Maytown meeting, we did not get up and speak on behalf of our district and our portion of the town budget, and I think it's very important that,
We did.
We did.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
We
we did.
got up and spoke on all.
Actually,
Jean's
but I got up and read a statement.
where was I?
I don't know.
You were there.
I read a statement
Yes.
supporting special ed stabilization
Yes.
funds. We had written.
And Katie went on the left side, Jean read up front.
Oh, maybe it was the budget.
No,
Maybe
I was on the budget. During the
got up
budget
on the
debate,
budget?
yes, we made
On
Jean
time
get, we
for
made
what?
Jean get up because we
Yeah, we
being
were getting a
silent.
little bit,
Yeah.
yeah, we were getting a little bit of machine gun fire from the audience.
Yeah.
So
We did
Well,
stand
then
up.
I
I made,
apologize
I made a
because-
heartfelt plea. Now, thank you for reminding me.
But I think we
Yeah.
should speak again. To your point.
Okay.
Right, we
But
should.
why do I not remember? I thought, I
Probably
just
because school
remembered.
committee never got
You were
up and
talking
said
to your friend
anything.
about voting.
Yeah, no, because I remember Steve Gomer getting up there talking about the school budget, supporting the school budget and the incremental amount over the 61%, and Chris Senior supported it, and then advisory got up and naysayed it, except
And then
Pauline
Regine
Lee.
rebutted.
And then, yeah, I rebutted that.
And then you
That's-
rebutted that,
yeah.
okay, so I apologize.
Yeah,
From
and
the
you
bottom
spoke-
of my
you
heart.
spoke, I completely had forgotten it,
I
so.
actually remember talking to you about it before the meetings. Anyway.
So,
Okay.
so, all right, we should have a plan to talk.
So do we wanna, I'm happy to take the stabilization fund article and have a statement prepared on Article 4.
Okay,
Is that
Yeah, that's great.
great?
you can watch yourself on TV and take
Yeah.
notes.
Exactly. Exactly.
And Amanda and I will tag team on security, and one of us will
Great.
get up there, Amanda.
And I think when the would it get too detailed? I mean, I just think it's interesting that the state has passed, like, this whole other mechanism to use
The
too, like, it's been,
modernization,
or is that just too
municipal,
confusing?
yeah, I don't think we
Yeah.
wanna go there, because we're not
Or just that
utilizing
fact
that method this time
No,
around.
no, but it's becoming
Maybe
a
next
sort of
time.
standard
I think that if
practice.
we give people too much
Okay.
information,
I was trying to
it
think if there's a
confuses-
way to reference it without it getting confusing, but at
Yeah.
any rate.
And I think it'll.
Because it's going to become a normal practice.
And we may need to go there for the spring town meeting.
Okay, all right, carry on.
Okay.
Boys won 2-1.
Whoa, excellent.
Okay.
I would interrupt.
Thank you.
He can come home tonight, so, I'm so sorry, but a few more things, Dee.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so yesterday morning was the semi-annual Cohasset Emergency Management Team meeting, and Louise and I attended. Glenn runs a pretty quick meeting. Everyone should have received in their water bills this very handy leaflet,
I
which
did.
I
looked at it.
got my bill and I ripped
Yeah.
up all the other stuff.
I know I have the bill
Okay.
to turn on and look, but I didn't open it, so
Okay.
I can't take
Did open it.
But
responsibility.
it's,
Someone was supposed to
No,
have.
somebody else in my house opened it.
you know, it's kind of an interesting thing, you know, to have. It has all the contacts, what you should have, how to handle situations, so, that was good,
I'm gonna
and,
come and look for it.
they had a drill, I knew nothing about this, did you know about their September 24th drill?
I was wondering when the schools would be involved in the drill, but.
Yeah, so they did a missing person mass casualty event at Wheelwright Park, drill.
I see that, I saw that in their news feed.
Oh, yeah, so, they said everything went well. The town has, been certified, LEPC, I don't know what that acronym is for, but it's a certification.
Emergency Protection Site.
Okay, which allows when, if you check off the box when you apply for grants for, emergency management, you kind of get bumped up the list a little bit. And they're just doing a lot of things. They've bought extra cots and pillows and supplies for the Deer Hill. The new generator can not only power the heating system, but provide some electricity for the shelter there. So it was, a pretty good meeting. It was only 2 years, so it's not a big deal. And then just one more quick thing, I went last night to Safe Harbor, the Andrew Stevens presentation. As you all know, he's the principal at Duxbury High School. He's been there for 10 years as principal, is that right?
Yes.
10 years, he's been in education for 19, he's been there for 10 years. About 25, 30 parents were there. And I put some notes together and I sent them on to Louise and Carolyn this morning because parents sit there like, oh, do we do that? Do we do that? Do we do that? So we do that. We do a lot of the same things. You know, one of the major hits that he had was stress less, laugh more. It was a week that he had concepted with guidance and psychologists, and now student council takes it over where they stress less and they laugh more. And there's a joke of the day, and there's meditation, and there's activities like the packing bubbles. He said was a big hit. You know, put
just
them in
sat
a
there
room
and
and they
popped
sat
them.
there and they popped them. All of the issues that we face as a community with our young adults and the choices that they make regarding drug, alcohol, and tobacco use, they face. Stress, anxiety, and depression are as prevalent in Duxbury as they are here. The pressures on children, our children, they put on themselves for academic performance is the same. There's no there's no modeling, like there's no way to profile. Those 3 kids are going to have problems, and these 3 kids are not, because kids with problems run the gamut. It's not identifiable. They are continuing with their homework-free moratorium weeks on the 3 vacation weeks for students and staff. Although I'm sure there are students and staff who continue to work during those weeks, but it's part of the culture there.
Is that something that we have revisited here or not?
The no homework.
No homework
Just
during
homework.
vacation
Just
weeks.
vacation weeks.
I think we did a long weekend last year. I think it was like,
Well, I have her notes here, that's what I was looking at. They did a week-long stress out last year.
yeah.
A sponsored initiative through YHC and pretty successful. So it was with Emily Emanuel and Torrance
Yeah.
Sweeney. They forwarded Turning the Tide to all parents, so we've done quite a bit. As far as a no homework, I think that's very difficult to institute. I think they minimize it, I think they make it long-term assignments instead.
I think if I'm not mistaken, I think Carolyn had picked 2 long weekends and said, okay, and I don't know if it was President's Day weekend. I forget exactly when, but I think she tried it last year. I don't know if it was district-wide with homework, but
Given her, given her expanded PBIS and emotional concerns that we have, and the increase in adjustment counselors, and we've done a great deal.
Mhm.
It's just that we've not posted it or advertised it very much, but
The homework-free holidays, it's, to be honest, it's huge. in my house,
Yeah.
it only at 6th and 7th grade, but to be able to walk, and it happens that the holidays coincide with the trimester schedule, so it's easier from a teaching perspective. But for the student to be able to completely walk away from school is so incredibly healthy. So I put that out there. I'm a huge supporter. I've seen the benefit, even in middle school, of being able just to leave that part of my life, let it sit fallow.
In middle school, it seems like you should be able to do that, right?
Yeah. So
I'm sorry,
In middle school, it seems like, it seems like in middle school, they should be able to walk away from homework for a vacation weekend.
I think they do.
Right,
I
in
think
middle
there's quite a
school.
bit of that going on.
But it just takes, to be honest, it
Both.
takes one teacher not doing it to kind of ruin it for the student. And so it's either,
Right.
you're either all in
It's
or
either
you're all
or
out.
nothing.
And so I would encourage,
We could lengthen the school day and not have.
I don't
Yeah,
know,
that would be
I guess my
popular.
challenge is that other people figure out how to do it, and maybe it's long weekends, I don't know, it's powerful. I'll just leave it, it's powerful for the family as a parent, and I know it's powerful for the child, and so again,
maybe
other
they-
public schools are figuring it out.
Yeah.
Or can they reverse the work in the,
And if I was gonna pick an issue that I see come up on there's two issues that come back up on Facebook all the time. One is start time, and the other is homework-free weekends. And of the two that I'd rather tackle as a district, start times to me sounds like a headache, cause it involves teacher contracts and everything else.
Someone who's done it.
I know, but of
That's
the
my
two
baby.
that you hear the parents in the community most talking about, it's those two, and if we were gonna partially tackle one, it would be homework free.
So, yeah, I had a thought on the stress less, laugh more. I think the concept of a week, the kids here have a spirit week. You know, I think something like this, one of the moms there came from Texas, and she said what they did every day was start with meditation. You know, 2 to 3 minutes of meditation. So I think a week is a great idea, but I think it's the continuity and consistency of these stress relieving activities that could be important. I'll just quickly go through the rest of it. Consistent messaging from the schools, the parents, and the police department is important. His problem is the same one we have here, where some parents say, I'd rather have my kids and their friends in my basement drinking and not driving. And it's very hard to reinforce the messages and establish the boundaries. So we're very similar. He complimented Cohasset, said the K-12 wellness and health ed curriculum is far superior at Cohasset than Duxbury. He said Duxbury parents years ago, 1997, voted against instituting a full wellness and health curriculum and said it belonged at home. And he said they've recently just turned that tide, and he goes, you guys are light years ahead of us. Turning the tide, Louise mentioned, that's a bunch of college admission offices got together and really wrote this article, and Carolyn has distributed it and continues to do so in the college prep meetings that parents have about, you know, you don't need to have a 4-page brag sheet. What are they really looking for? What are colleges really looking for? So that's a great stress reliever, and thinking, oh my God, I have to get more community service. I have to get another activity. I have to do this. I have to do that. And he says that's been helpful. And then one thing I don't think I captured the right name. He called it the Mondo page, and maybe on the Duxbury High School page, there's an outline of exactly what the time requirements are for academics, what the scheduling looks like if you're going to play a varsity sport, and what your commitment is, and what are the scheduling requirements for a student council, so that parents and kids can really look at it and say, how much can I really fit into 24 hours doing things with the school? And we all know how prevalent outside school activities, particularly club sports, are, and the commitment that is required because it's a huge financial commitment. And he said he's gotten a lot of positive feedback on that, so that parents can say, no, you can't do drama because that's 10 hours a week, and club lacrosse is 20 hours a week, and you're in accelerated classes, and that's 50 hours a week, you know, so he said that was a good tool for students and parents to use to really help deschedule themselves and really have realistic expectations of just how much our kids can do day in and day out. So that basically is it in a nutshell. I mean, I'm happy to send you the notes I sent to Carolyn if you guys want to see it.
I'd love to see it, just.
Yep, okay, I'll forward them. I did that. Last and final plug for the Cohasset High School Athletic Hall of Fame induction ceremony, Friday night, November 25th at the Cohasset Golf Club. Tickets are $70. Right now they have about, I'm gonna say, runs at 8 tables of 8. He's expecting about 100 to 120 people there. So if anyone wants to go, I cannot go, but I'll be here at the game taking pictures. So what they do, if you come to the football game in the morning at 9 o'clock out in the lower gym lobby where the plaques are, everybody meets and greets, and I take the pictures for Facebook, and then they go out on the field at halftime. Ron gets former student athletes to come to escort them out, like in their sports. If you have a basketball player, you know, et cetera, et cetera.
Great.
And that's the last update for 2 years until the next Hall of Fame class.
Okay.
And that completes my list. I'm so sorry.
So I just wanted to quickly talk about, and I have brought an updated copy. So Katie and I were just working on.
It's okay, we'll share with you.
I've got a copy.
Thank you. So Katie and I I've been trying to sort of take the information contained in the warrant and sort of whittle it down to kind of the key articles, information about the articles that involve the schools and how to kind of convey that information to the parents in sort of a simple way. So I put together this little flyer, and I had changed it from the version that I circulated online, just to make sure that we're being clear that it's just about what these articles are really asking, what they would be funding if you approve them, and what you wouldn't be funding if you decided not to. So I just wanted to get feedback. We certainly don't have to circulate anything like this. It was just, is it a way to convey the importance of special town meeting to parents that may not have had experience with it before?
Okay. I think that's awesome.
So I tried to make sure that the language, and Katie and I both reviewed it, matches what's in the warrant. It's information about what is already distributed by the town.
Okay.
Any thoughts, feedback, comments?
So do we want to send this out electronically to families in the district? Is that what the plan?
I think we were thinking
might be?
through PSO and CEF.
Okay.
Not necessarily from the district, but
There's a whole thought process about mixing politics with what goes on here.
Yep.
So PSO and CEF are great if they can go through that avenue.
They have been for the last two.
Right, I received one in my email from the last meeting.
Yeah, so the CF has done it for the last two annual and special town meetings. The PSO got involved last May town meeting, and you know, there's a lot of I mean, Chris has said it directly. You know, he wants to see parents at these meetings.
Absolutely.
He wants to see people engaged, and so I think it is incumbent on us at least to get the message out. In the past, Superintendent Cataldo used to just send a very factual Blackboard Connect about what the upcoming meetings were, but I think while it was factual and it gave people the dates to mark on their calendar, it didn't really tell them why they're coming. So I think what I like about this is it not only tells you the date, but it tells you what is in special town meeting, and it obviously emphasizes the school piece, but it's factual in terms of the overall picture of what all the key articles are. So
And we can change, I can adjust and change any of the language if it's.
I think there's anything
I
you should
no, I
have.
think it's very succinct.
Yeah.
I think it's just telling what the purpose of the various articles are and what they mean. I think that it doesn't have us weigh in at all on any of it. It's just the facts. I think it's great. Excuse me, I have to.
So I think if, I mean, I'll put it on space to help us, you know, pass it 143, I mean,
Okay.
so if you could send it electronically.
Oh, yeah,
Cause
yeah.
it's, you know, a different version.
Yeah.
I mean, PSO, I mean, I'm just thinking I could call the head of basketball boosters and have him email blasted out to his 300 or 400 kids in that, program.
No, I think it, thank you for
Oh,
putting your
yes, no
design
problem.
skills to
No
it, yeah.
But it was,
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I can, but I can change any language if anybody doesn't, or has an issue with the way anything's written, so.
perfect.
Is that okay
It is
with
very-
all of you guys?
Looks nice.
Yeah.
Looks like
It has color, like it
I
looks
saw
better
that
in
It
color.
has a
online,
color
yeah.
version too.
And the rec department is sending a flyer home.
Yes, I got
so-
mine today from,
And they did,
Osgood.
Jean corrected the last line, but they had already corrected it.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Event wasn't there, it said, this is not a school sponsored.
Something.
So,
Yes.
no, on the bottom of the rec,
The rec department
It
had
just said not.
games for kids and
Yeah.
Oh,
care.
for the babysitting?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's
going
on
out
the-
there.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
They
going
didn't
out to
complete
the schools.
those.
Okay, they didn't complete the
Schools
sentence.
didn't circulate recreation.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on.
That's, yeah, I don't complete my sentences.
Can I give one quick PSO update?
Yes.
I mentioned this to Lisa Farrell yesterday at the PSO meeting in the morning at Osgood. And I don't know her name other than Amar's mom, who brought the bus monitor for Metco was in attendance. And we had a really great conversation with as parents and with her about how there used to be like a Metco host family
Correct.
relationship.
Yes.
And there seemed to be a lot of interest on both sides and maybe rekindling that, especially at the Osgood where new students are coming in and they're starting to form
Was Elisa
friendship.
there at the meeting?
She was not, because she was here at the leadership.
Okay. That's right.
But it was really, there seemed to be a lot of interest on both sides, so
That would be wonderful.
I think it would be great if we could rekindle that a little bit. She had expressed that some of the Boston parents get nervous about their kids staying for play dates
Correct.
at homes here because they don't know the parents and vice versa. So if there were, we could all coordinate opportunities for more structured activities. I know they have the bowling event, trying to market that more to make sure families come from both sides. So it was a nice conversation.
That
I
was
think
the
Elisa
issue.
could work through that.
Because when I volunteered to do it when Meg was in kindergarten, and it was exactly that issue of there was no opportunity for the parents of the two relationships to meet,
Right.
and so there wasn't that relationship that allowed, on the half days for the children to have some place to go other than the school
Right.
cafeteria. So it's definitely, I'm glad to hear that there continues to be interest. There just needs to be a way to bridge the gap on the half days in particular, because as I understand it, that's one of the opportunities.
Yeah, yeah.
I would even extend it, I'm sorry.
No,
I would even extend it to the high school, in the sense that when Stephen was in school, there was a Metco boy who,
Host.
but this particular boy had no host family, or he had a host family, but he was staying at my house one night, at someone else's
Right.
house one night. He was telling his mom he was at someone else's one night, but he was at his girlfriend's another night, and, and willingly, everyone's feeding them and getting them to school and packing a lunch and all of that, but it's like, who's really responsible? Because when you get to the high school age and the kid says, well, I'm going out, I'm getting picked up. Well, your parental instincts kick in and you say, well, who you going with, where you gonna be, my house rule is you're home by 11.
I think it's a good conversation to have with parents who have that interest, because I think it brings in a larger situation to discuss, and that's talking about all of them, not just Osgood, Deer Hill, but middle high school as well. So how do we arrange the distance to come together and really have a conversation about getting to know one another, to extend it beyond the children? So I know there were host families for everyone at some point. Elisa did say that to me, and she's always been interested in expanding understanding of one another. And I think it extends beyond the students, so it's a great conversation to initiate.
There definitely seemed to be a lot of interest on the Cohasset parent side,
I
so.
will have a conversation with her, she'll be thrilled. And her office is now at Osgood, so that may be a good start to have people into the library and
Right.
start discussing on possible ideas and what she thinks might be doable or not.
Right. Do you know if Cohasset parents ever go to their meetings in, when they have their METCO meetings in the city?
Very well
They're not, okay.
I think there's still the apprehension of going into a neighborhood that's unknown
Okay.
for many, as it would for them as well. I think it goes both ways.
Yeah.
So it might be good to have a mutual place.
Okay, I missed part of this, but
We were talking about mental health families, I'm sorry.
that's okay. All right. So are we ready to move on? There are no audience members to chase out with the approval of minutes. You haven't been here.
I haven't been to.
No, every time I announce, okay, approval of the minutes, everybody in the audience gets up and leaves.
It's over.
It's hysterical.
But we used to do them at the beginning of the meetings, and it was like torture.
It was
Like,
torture.
yeah, when you were sitting in the audience and.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
now it's a pleasure, because Tracy does the minutes.
Yes. All right, so, school committee minutes from Wednesday, October 19th, 2016. Does anybody have any corrections?
I
Yes.
just had on, the second page, Tracy, where it says additional half-days right under the 2017-2018. It said curriculum development, and I didn't know if we could say curriculum mapping, because that, I think, is what the intention of those days is, a little bit more clearly.
Where is it? I'm sorry.
So under 2017-2018 calendar, it says additional half-days is curriculum development, which is critical in moving the district forward. I think those 3 days are gonna be curriculum mapping.
Thank you.
The only other one I had was down at the bottom under report from subcommittees. It says Mrs. Ani attended the PSO meeting. It says there was a successful event recently. I thought maybe we should say Booster-thon was a successful event.
Uh-huh.
That raised $54,000, just so they'll remember which one it was. Thank you.
So maybe instead of the word event, just put in booster-thon.
Yeah, that works too.
Anything else on these? Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the minutes of October 19th, 2016?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the second set of minutes was received only electronically. I thought it might be important for us to just keep the momentum going, and we had enough time to look it over. So the next is the November 1st, 2016 minutes, and the only correction that I have, and I didn't print it out, was the retirement of Mary Dugan. Her name is spelled Duggan, D-U-G-G-A-N, but it should be 1 G. And it's, I believe, in 2 places.
Page 2, new hires.
Yeah. So if you could just correct that, so the retiree's name is correct, that would be great. Anybody else have any comments on this?
Page 2, new hires, second line, first word, Kimienti, it just has an I before the E in the E-N-T-I.
Where are we?
Sorry. It's, where's it? Oh, it's up here, I'm sorry, mine's formatted different, E-N-T, and then,
So it's spelled wrong, his name?
yeah.
Okay.
And then superintendent's, the next paragraph down, superintendent's entry plan and goals. Mrs. Demas explained the purpose. Mr. Pratt will send, that's all. Just little, nothing substantive, really.
Anybody else? Okay, then I have a motion to approve the minutes of the Cohasset School Committee meeting on November 1st, 2016.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, follow-up and updates?
Can I make a suggestion here, just,
Sure.
can we, I'm happy to email any comments on this one. It's 10:30.
Yep.
It's
Oh,
roasting-
yeah,
it's
I
roasting
wasn't
hot.
planning
that's
on,
fine.
yeah.
So,
I didn't-
there
I didn't-
weren't any.
Yeah, I didn't even bring it, so.
I'm just reading,
Yeah.
yeah.
you know, the
No, we
next.
can move on.
Yep. Okay, and I do not have any topics not reasonably anticipated for this 48 hours in advance of the meeting, other than the need to move into executive session for the purpose of number 3, strategy related to collective bargaining with union personnel, bus drivers, as having the conversation in public could be detrimental to the bargaining. We will reconvene in public session to adjourn. So could I have a motion to move to executive session for purpose number 3?
So moved.
Okay, so do you want a second? Ellen, I heard Ellen first move it. Do you want a second?
I'll second, thank you.
Okay.
I'm like literally mind melting here.
Yeah, I know. It's so hot in here. I need a roll call to move into executive, please.
Much later.
I, Barbara Steffi.
I, Katie Dugan.
I, Gina Stino.
Hi, Ellen Mar.
Hi, Amanda.
Thank you for hanging in.
Oh, you are most welcome.
Okay.
Louise, is it always